It is 6 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Tuesday, January, I almost said December, January 7th. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations, you're waking up in the greatest country in history. We're off and running. We got a whole show planned for you of engaging content, critical discussions, but most importantly, your phone calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver. Let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Phone lines are open. If you want to join the conversation, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Coming up in a few minutes, Rory O'Neill's going to join us on the Consumer Electronics Show. These are all the really cool latest gadgets that are coming your way. We're going to talk with him and get an update on what new inventions could be changing your lives. We're going to talk about how Denver is preparing for cuts from the federal government on grants. This is wild. Mike Johnston essentially saying, yeah, I guess we're just going to have to deal with it because I'm not going to do anything about those illegal immigrants. Essentially choosing the illegal immigrants over the citizens of Denver because their services are about to go down. We'll be covering that article in the Gazette. In the 7 o'clock hour, Britta Horn's going to be joining us. She is challenging, possibly, Dave Williams, if Dave chooses to run again as chairwoman of the Colorado Republican Party. She's going to be joining us in the 7 o'clock hour. Want to hear from you, especially on that. Does Britta have your vote? And then Dr. Ian Clary, a good friend of mine from CCU and Canadian professor, is going to give us some insight into how Canada is going to change now that Trudeau is heading for the exit. And then John Carson, who won the vacancy over the weekend for Senate District 30, that's Kevin Van Winkle's district in Douglas County, is going to be joining us, give us insight into what got him over the line. How did he win? And what are his plans to lead? So the newly appointed senator from Douglas County, John Carson, will be joining us in the 9 o'clock hour. So lots to cover, including news, but boy, oh boy, is that weather bad out there. That commute, not easy this morning. So please,
that was a mess.
Give yourself plenty of time out there.
Yeah, roads are slippery. And so that's the problem, is you've got some built up snow. So it's not necessarily going to be the ice, but it will be snow that's going to slow down your traction, and it is going to be slippery. Remember that four-wheel drive does not mean four-wheel stop. Yeah. That's going to be the problem this morning, is understand leaving enough space between you and the car in front of you, because your car is going to take longer to stop this morning. Main roads are okay. They're better. But side roads, neighborhood roads, they're a mess. So
I come down Parker Road in my commute, and that was a mess. Accidents, slow going, lanes not cleared.
Oh, yeah. That's kind of nice. So this time of the morning is lanes are suggestions at this point.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
That's fine.
And one person in front of me decided to just use all three.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that too.
They just went from one to the next, and we're all driving behind them, be like, oh, boy, when's my shot to pass? So
yeah, exactly.
Be careful out there. Lots of news to cover. Let's start with news and commentary with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, guys. Glad you made it.
You guys getting some snow up there?
Yeah. This is like the first week that northern Colorado has actually seen some snow.
Really?
I mean, it's crazy. I would come down to Denver, the past 2 or 3 snows that Denver has had, and we had nothing. It was pretty cool. I'm not a big snow guy, so but we have some, and the roads are a little slick. So be careful out there. Just take it easy. No hurry. Then the sun's going to come out. I think it's going to clear it out, hopefully, later on today. So glad you guys are safe and sound there in the studio. And it's 22 with snow, some delays up and down the Front Range. Expecting a high of 27 today. The 710 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, Denver Mayor Mike Johnston feels his office has had some notable successes in 2024. On Monday, he pointed to data that shows significant declines in deadly and non-deadly shootings. Johnston said his office exceeded its goals for moving the homeless indoors and providing more affordable housing units. However, homelessness in Colorado increased by 30% in 2024, according to the latest point-in-time count. According to the findings, over 4,000 more people were counted in 2024 than 2023. A man connected to a crime ring accused of stealing cars and robbing dozens of marijuana dispensaries is going to prison for 30 years. The Denver DA's office announced the sentence for 21-year-old Gennaro Zuniga on Monday. Zuniga was one of nearly 24 people arrested for being part of 2 organized crime groups in the Denver area. He pled guilty to 3 charges, including 1 count of violating the state's Organized Crime Act. Friday, DJT will be sentenced for a criminal conviction by Judge Mersham in the inauguration derailment case. DJT on with you on Monday, focusing on what needs to be done in this country, like building instead of focusing on the Green New Deal.
All they talk about is Green New Deal. That's the only thing they really talk about. And you know what? It doesn't work. People don't care about it. They're so tired of it. You know, we had the cleanest air and water that we've ever had during the Trump administration. And all you hear about is what they want to do. They want to destroy our country. And that's what's happened. And that's why the election was such a tremendous success from the Republican standpoint.
The former leader of the Proud Boys is asking DJT for a January 6th Capitol riot pardon. The attorney for Enrico Tarrio claims his client is being targeted for his political views. Tarrio is currently serving a 22-year sentence after being convicted of seditious conspiracy over his plan to overturn the 2020 election results by force. Sonny Hostin on The View on Monday. Jeff, I know you want to talk about this. Let's listen to this. Another dumb statement.
I think we need to find moral clarity, in this country. And I just remember after January 6th, you had someone like Mitch McConnell placing the blame on January 6th where it belonged, squarely on Donald Trump's shoulders. Mm-hmm. And then started seeing people backtrack that and losing their moral center. You had Condoleezza Rice, I believe, on this very show saying, we need to move on from January 6th. I say no. You don't move on because January 6th was an atrocity. It was one of the worst moments in American history. And when you think about the worst moments in American history, like World War II, things that happened, like the Holocaust, chattel slavery. We need to never forget because past becomes prologue if you forget any race.
What do you think about that?
So where do you begin?
I
would love some moral clarity. I mean, we only execute 70 innocent children a day here in the state of Colorado with abortion. But so I've always said this about January 6th. If we want to take January 6th seriously, okay, then we've got to take the BLM riots seriously, which we just didn't. We did. Exactly. I mean, we basically gave anybody in Colorado a pass on curfew violations. They shot guns at the Capitol and nobody was arrested for that.
Yeah.
Right. So you, on one hand, you dismiss riots if they come from your side and then prosecute the hell out of riots if they come from the other side. So if we want to have some moral clarity, then let's be pouring over video evidence on the BLM riots like we did with January 6th. But then you also have plenty of people that were prosecuted for nonviolent crimes on January 6th that I don't think are fair. So That's the moral
Absolutely
clarity,
not.
I think.
I don't think I saw more flames than the riots in 2020 on television.
And those were
And
mostly peaceful, remember?
Yeah, and they were mostly peaceful, and there wasn't anything going on in the backgrounds of stand-ups. But never forget this. I think it's my favorite soundbite, and you'll probably hear it 1,000 times this year.
Because you lied about January 6th, calling it worse than Pearl Harbor or 9/11, instead of what January 6th really was, the FBI guided tour of the Capitol building.
So
Succinct.
Blake, I spent yesterday kind of doing a bit of a deep dive through the Massey report on the pipe bombs.
Oh,
Because that always struck me as like
yes.
totally weird.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Oh, yes.
So the Massey report came out January 2nd, right in the middle of everything with, holidays and that type of stuff. So it didn't get the news coverage it needed to. But he points out some, and this is a congressional report, it's like 40 pages long. Some really interesting things. One, so you had the 2 pipe bombs, one outside the RNC, one outside the DNC. And both cases, they had kitchen timers on them set for, that could at max set for 60 minutes. And they were placed the night before. Right? So the congressional report raises this, like, what were they planning to do? They put these in the dead of night on a 60-minute timer. Were they planning to, just kind of have them go off while nobody was around? It didn't make much sense. And then they bring up this interesting line about viable. Okay, so these are lines from the actual report. Okay.
Yeah. I want to
Given the suspect's use of 60-minute timers, it remains unclear whether the pipe bombs were capable of detonating on January 6th. And how the FBI defined the term viable when describing the explosive devices. According to an FBI bomb technician who agreed to speak to the committee staff on condition of anonymity for fear of reprisal, the FBI's use of the term viable is a deviation from the standard descriptions used by bomb technicians. Traditionally, bomb technicians deliberately avoid using vague language, choosing instead to refer to a bomb as a device if it would, quote, function as designed, unquote, or as a hoax, unquote. So the FBI essentially comes up with this new term called viable with these bombs that had kitchen timers that weren't they weren't necessarily being used yet to attack people. Then it gets crazier. These bombs were, especially the one with the DNC,
Yes.
was right at the feet of Secret Service. Did you hear about this?
Oh, yeah.
They were right there at the
Absolutely.
feet of the Secret Service. They
On
didn't
a
even see it.
bench.
Yeah, they didn't even see it.
Yes.
It was just sitting there.
It's
And then
just
they
sitting
bring
there.
in Kamala Harris to have meetings at the DNC.
Why was she there?
Well, because that's so.
We know why.
Well, to have political meetings and these the RNC
On the day
of January 6th, right?
Yeah. Is a MAGA guy. He was looking to blow up everything, wasn't he?
I mean,
And
it's wild. And then the report gets into the fact that initially they had all these leads, right? They actually, because of the shoes, because of the material, because of the cell phone data,
Yes.
they got really close. They had a list of persons of interest, and then they just stopped.
Wow. What happened? That's so weird. How were they able to see the faces of everyone on these security cameras on January 6th? And then they see the guy planting the bombs, right? But we have no idea who he is, where he is.
Yeah, wild.
Yeah, that is that thing. They were ready for that to work for them in their favor, and then they backed off of it because everything that happened at the Capitol. We don't need that anymore, right?
It's wild.
Wow.
We've got Rory on the line.
Okay, all right. I'll get out of here. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything. Fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954. Online at LairFireplacePatio.com. 18 in Superior, 20 in Lone Tree, 22 in Denver. It's Monday. Jeff and Billy continue. Blake Olson. No, it's Tuesday. I'm sorry. It's Tuesday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
We're under a winter weather advisory through noon. It'll be mostly cloudy with periods of
national
light snow,
correspondent
mainly
joining us
here in the
because it's
morning
the
hours.
annual Consumer Electronics Show underway in Las Vegas. What are the latest gadgets coming your way? How could these change your lives? I'm a tech nerd, early adopter, so very excited to talk to Rory. Rory, what are we seeing at CES this year?
Well, we're seeing obviously AI in more and more devices. A lot of AI is just sort of a branding thing, but that's all right. A lot of this stuff is really geeky. It's about the computer chips and what they're capable of doing. But when it comes to the consumer side of things, a lot of the developments are in healthcare. Things like full body mirrors that can take a lot of medical readings and then transmit that information to your doctor. We're seeing massage chairs and that do more things than ever before. Let's leave it at that. But they're also seeing, those robot vacuums. They're including robotic arms in the robot vacuum. So it'll actually pick up your socks rather than just drive over them.
Talking to Rory O'Neill, NBC News national correspondent about consumer electronic. I've noticed too, some flying cars are being showcased there. Have you seen anything about that?
Well, flying on paper, at least. But a lot of this still is concept technology that's getting out there because, look, they are still planning to have flying air taxis in the mix at some point down the road. Or above the road, I guess, more appropriately, to alleviate and avoid all the traffic out there. But still, there's just so many logistical issues to confront and cost issues as well. That's one of the joys, though, of this show is that stuff that's unveiled at $10,000 is suddenly $1,000 4 or 5 years from now, and it does end up in our living rooms. One of the coolest things I thought, all right, so you guys have not had me over to your house for dinner yet. That's okay. But I'm just guessing, if I were to go there and stand at your stove, probably the microwave is right above it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So the new thing now is the door of the microwave is actually a computer tablet.
Really?
So you use it now. So it has the recipe that can come up. It has cameras that can look down and show you each of the 4 burners and how things are going. So if you're making a video to post on TikTok or YouTube about your cooking, boom, bam, it's already being recorded in there. It can catch into the refrigerator and what food you might need to order and things like that. But so rather than just have that dead panel that is a microwave oven door, they're integrating it now with LG, essentially putting a tablet computer right there at your fingertips at your eye level.
Oh, wow. Because then that would allow you to stream videos and everything else all inside of the kitchen, which is one of the problems they've had. They can get the smart speakers in there, but getting someone to put a television in your kitchen has been more difficult. That's interesting.
Well, right. Well, because you don't want to put it on a countertop, right?
Yes, exactly.
And then sometimes you're foiling with it, or you have to go to the screen to see what the recipe was and back up. Nope, now it'll all be right in front of you.
Now that's interesting because I have always been questioning for years why my refrigerator needs to connect to the internet. Mine doesn't personally, but they've got that. And I'm like, I can't understand why it would have to. Now they've given me a mechanism or a reason as to why that screen would be useful inside of the kitchen. That makes sense.
Yeah, and I've seen where they've tried to make the refrigerator put the screen in the door, so it's sort of it's the home calendar to say soccer practice Tuesday. You can sort of write stuff on there, but then they try to say, oh, it's going to order your groceries for you because it has cameras to show you're low on ketchup. You need milk, that kind of thing. I never saw that, but I just think that the microwave space is so clever because you're just standing there, right? If you are cooking, you're just standing there looking at the microwave door, and at least now it might give you.
Oh, that's interesting. Now, Rory O'Neill, NBC News national correspondent, joining Jeff and Bill live, talking about CES going on in Vegas. What has been the, what I would say is most outrageous or extravagant item you've run across? Something that you're like, wow, whoever thought of that? If I won the lottery, that's something I would buy. What's the most strange thing?
Yeah. There's this whole transparent TV business that essentially it's the TV images sort of float in the air. There's not as much of a frame for a TV, but then when you just want to watch Netflix or watch the game, a screen comes up so that you can actually, it's less transparent, so you can see the black of black, and it makes more sense as a normal TV. But when you have the black screen down, it just sort of projects almost holographic-like images. I just don't know, because the thing is this: a lot of people, women in particular, with their design mentality that men tend to lack, they hate this idea of a big black hole on our wall. Every guy wants a 72-inch screen hole in the wall, but every woman says, "Oh, that's just ugly." And they're trying to find ways to make the TV more attractive when it's off. And this is part of it.
Talking with Rory O'Neill, national correspondent for NBC News Radio on CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, starting today, running through Friday, January 10th. I really appreciate you taking time to join us, Rory. Thanks for giving us an update.
Yeah, thanks. Enjoy yourself.
Sure, guys. Good to talk to you.
Great. Again, Rory O'Neill with NBC News. CES is cool. Runs, be fun to do a live broadcast.
Yeah. The technology
play
is a
with
lot
all
of fun.
those toys.
Yeah, just to see what it is. It's always fun to see the technology. And I'm less enthused about the arms on top of the robot, but that screen on the microwave, the front of the microwave, makes a hell of a lot of sense. I've been wondering how they were going to integrate the idea of internet connectivity into the kitchen, because everything was supposed to be for a while connected to the kitchen and connected to the internet. Some people may have remembered those Amazon buttons they put out for a while that you could program the button to actually reorder something automatically. And the idea was you'd put the button next to your laundry machine, and then when you ran out of dishwashing soap, you'd put laundry soap, you'd push it, and it would automatically order it. And that failed because there's no utility behind that. It's just adding an extra stupid button for something that you could do yourself. The idea of making it an integrated screen in which you can bring up recipes, you can stream video, you can even record video. Now you have found utility inside of that screen, much more than just making it a digital calendar, because that's just stupid. That's why I could never understand all the technology they were stuffing into some of these appliances, because it seemed unnecessary. But a screen, the front of the microwave, that seems very, very user-friendly. That's a great idea.
I've gotten weary of too tech-oriented, especially washing machines.
Oh, yeah.
Because they seem to break a lot more often. So we buy the most basic model.
Yeah.
And ours has been chugging along. I got to knock on wood here. But ours has been chugging along for like a dozen years.
Oh, wow.
Just basic, hot, cold, small, medium, large. It's doing just fine.
Yeah.
I don't need to program it from my phone.
The clothes dryer that we have in our house, the big dryer that does the clothes, is the same clothes dryer my parents purchased in 1984.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's interesting to see, because those are completely designed differently than what we have now. That machine is designed so that you can repair it and work on it, where machines now are not at all. That dryer is really easy to repair, very, very functional. Access panels are huge. It's wonderful. And it just works like a dream. And the new ones, no, not so much. They would prefer you throw it away or replace it rather than repair it.
Oh, yeah. Looking today at the schedule for CES. The digital health thing. That's something where I get pretty excited about.
What
mirrors,
aspect
if
of
the
it?
mirrors can help figure out, hey, you need to do more sit-ups.
Yeah, but do you want that from your mirror every morning? Morning, fat ass. How about this? It's like when you have the talking scale. It's basically like, nope, sorry, only one at a time. It's like, no, I'm not certain that's a plus. I'm not sold on that one.
My wife and I were looking at this yesterday. There's a scale online that you can buy that doesn't even tell you your weight. It just tells you whether you're improving or not.
Oh, that's dumb. But I understand why.
I didn't buy it, but it was hilarious. I'm like, it doesn't
even tell you anything.
You're doing better today than you were yesterday.
Oh, well. Every little bit helps.
Well, we've got a whole lot to cover today. I want to get into this next. Mike Johnston, in an interview with the Gazette, saying, I guess we're just going to have to accept less money. This is federal grant money for services to the people of Denver are going to be cut because the federal government is, getting serious about illegal immigration. And if you remain a sanctuary city, you're not going to receive these federal grants. So I want to get into this. Who do you blame for this? The Trump administration for putting these restrictions now on federal grants, or Mayor Mike Johnston just saying, we're not going to change. We're going to be a sanctuary city, even if it means millions of dollars in services are cut to the people of Denver. Want to hear from you? Give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. Listen, do you know a high school student who has a passion for engaging in culture and political issues? The knowledge and skills needed to impact the world through civic engagement is an ever-increasing need in today's society. Colorado Christian University is at the forefront of meeting this crucial need, equipping the next generation of competent, convictional Christian leadership in American politics. CCU's degree program in politics, with an emphasis in public policy, prepares students for the complex challenges of modern politics from an unapologetically Christian and foundationally conservative worldview. In this distinct program, students learn how to impact public policy and advance Christian conservative ideas. Colorado Christian University also houses the Centennial Institute, a think tank committed to mobilizing ideas on faith, family, and freedom to strengthen America's future. CCU's mission to produce graduates who impact the world with grace and truth applies in no greater measure than to our politics and public policy program. Apply today at ccu.edu/apply. That's ccu.edu/apply. Phone lines starting to light up. We'll get to those next. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. So, Mike Johnston, the mayor of Denver, sitting down with the Denver Gazette, saying he's preparing the city for, quote, all eventualities, unquote, including you losing federal funds over his objections to President-elect Donald Trump's plans to conduct the largest ever mass deportation in American history. He says, I think we're trying to prepare for all eventualities. When asked about losing those funds, we will presume the federal government wants to support all of its cities and states. The taxpayers deserve those services, and we don't anticipate there should be cuts to those services. But we're looking at all eventualities, not knowing what could happen. He noted that federal funds are funding several projects, notably the Colfax Bus Rapid Transit project currently under construction. We think those dollars will continue on path, but we're going to prepare for all outcomes and continue with this plan we have and focus on vibrant, safe, and affordable Denver with all the resources we're using here. When pressed if he's worried about cuts in federal funding, he replied, oh, I think there's lots of things to be worried about. But instead of which one will come to pass to be worried about, we're doing everything we can to make sure that the people's quality of life in Denver is not affected by a federal administration change and make sure that the services that the people rely on every day remain stable and predictable. He says, I think we can do that without compromising our values. So, President Trump getting elected, laying out the vision that if these sanctuary cities continue to harbor illegal immigrants, they could lose federal funding that comes in the form of grants, that comes in the form of services. And Mike Johnston not wanting to address that issue as far as being a sanctuary city, instead going, well, we think that the federal government isn't going to want to put its own people out there. We're going to keep on trucking as a sanctuary city. From my perspective, he's choosing illegal immigrants over the citizens of his own city. Because if I were in his shoes, I'd just go, well, I don't want this to even be a question. We're not going to be a sanctuary city. I'm not going to deny. I'm not even going to question. I'm not even going to put it out there as a possibility of having federal funds cut from my city, serving my people. Instead, he wants to, quote, maintain Denver's values, unquote, as a sanctuary city. Let's go to the phone lines. Marcus, Denver. What do you think of this?
Well, this is pretty interesting. Now, that federal funding goes to the nonprofits of Denver. That re-violation of downtown Denver, like what you talked about, and it goes a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It's like New York, California said the same thing. They're losing billions. And Johnson now has that tax on sidewalks and some new fees he's done with. There's no way this is going to pull off.
Well, there's a few things that have to happen then. So either he's got to raise taxes on his own people in order to cover these services, or he just cuts services.
He doesn't have the money.
Yeah.
And people don't have the money to fund it. Without federal aid, we're done.
And do you blame Mike Johnston or do you blame Donald Trump? Because you could make the argument that, well, this is Donald Trump now forcing this upon the city of Denver. They just want to have illegal immigrants.
Johnson can stop it. He
That's
can
true.
stop it right now.
Got a question for both of you.
He has the power to stop it.
Can Donald Trump stop it? And what I mean by that is, does Donald Trump have the power to pull federal construction grants for things like business development along Colfax Avenue based on illegal immigration?
He sure does.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't.
Constitution law.
Marcus, he doesn't.
He has the power.
No,
Billy,
Marcus,
I'm
he
going to
doesn't.
disagree with you.
No, I disagree with you, Marcus.
He has the power. You're not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. Look at the Constitution. Look at the Supreme Court.
This isn't about Constitution nor Supreme Court. This is about how those grants are written in the laws. And those grants and laws.
Matter.
Marcus, yes, it does.
He violated.
Marcus.
Johnson violated the federal law.
No, Marcus.
It's like
no, Marcus.
Back when George Washington sent in troops, he went with them on taxes. So it's the same thing.
No, it's not.
Give me a break, Billy.
No, Marcus, the issue being
You
if the
watch
grants...
what happens, Billy, and you're going to say,
Eventually I
something,
get to
you
talk
might learn something
sooner or later.
in life.
So are you done insulting me? Do you think that I don't know what I'm talking
not
about, Marcus?
insulting you. I
Marcus,
like you.
Marcus, no, yes, you,
I'm
Marcus,
just telling you,
Marcus,
you can't always be right, Billy.
Marcus,
You're always right, but you can't always be right.
Marcus,
go look. You're not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer.
Marcus,
okay?
Marcus, you just a second ago,
look.
Marcus, just a second ago, you told me that maybe I might learn something in life. That is you.
That's right. Like I do every day too.
Yeah, I know, but that's you trying to denigrate me and telling me that I don't know what I'm talking about. That's the way you're trying to do there.
You, Billy.
Yes, you did, Marcus.
I'm just saying you can't
Marcus,
always be right,
did.
Billy.
No, you didn't say that, Marcus.
I'm sorry.
You said,
apologize.
Marcus, you said that maybe I would learn what I'm talking about. And this is what I have the question about.
If I denigrated you, I apologize for
I appreciate that. Now, this is why.
I'll just talk to you normal.
This is what I'm trying. This is where I'm trying to take this conversation is that those grants and laws are written to direct the money in a certain direction. Donald Trump does not have universal purview on where that money goes. And that is like, if the money is written for education, he can't then say, because Colorado is a sanctuary city or because Colorado's not doing X, Y, and Z, I'm now going to pull your education funds. If that grant money is directed towards business development, I am hard-pressed finding where the rule is that says he can suspend the federal grant money for businesses based on immigration policy. That's where I think he's going to have a problem.
Under immigration, trust me.
But Marcus,
under the Constitution,
the money, though,
he has authority, not the state.
No. Wait, hang on a sec. Marcus, under the Constitution, the Congress has the authority of the purse. The Congress directs where funds go. The Congress does. That's not Trump. Trump can't, in my mind, I'm not certain that Trump can suspend federal money directed towards construction and infrastructure because of immigration policy. Again, I'm not a lawyer, nor would I know. But
it's federal law. It's not Trump has nothing to do with it.
No, Marcus, he does, because federal law says that grant money needs to be directed towards where it is supposed to go. Just like you can't take your federal grant money, you can't take your federal grant money for business development and turn around and use it to build a country club for a whole bunch of Congress members in the state. You can't take your federal education money and move that into transportation. There are rules about that. And that's what I'm worried about, is that everyone's thinking that Donald Trump will just suspend all of these grants. I'm not certain, based on how the rules are, that he has that power. I'm not certain. Again, I'm not saying that I'm absolutely right, but I question whether or not he has the ability to suspend federal money that is allocated for infrastructure based on immigration. Those are different piles of cash and different rules. And normally those grants are written to direct where the money goes. Otherwise, the states that get the grant would spend it on whatever they want. That's the problem Trump is going to run into. And that's what I'm trying to figure out, how he gets around that. And he can't just say, I can do it because I'm the president. He doesn't have that kind of control.
It's by federal law. It has nothing to do with Trump. And that's what I'm trying to say. Let's see what happens, Billy.
I think what Marcus is trying to point out is that if you have a state acting in violation of federal law, are there powers of the purse that can be implemented against those cities or states as a result of it? We'll have to see.
And there's certain things that may not be able to. And if you're talking about it being a federal law, that would have to go through Congress. And then you're going to have to get the Democrats on board with some of that as well. And that's going to be a harder lift, especially when you have one vote lead in the House. That's going to be hard to do. I'm just trying to come at this with open eyes and say, here are the challenges in front that I see. That's all I'm trying to do. I'm not saying there's no way Trump can do this. I'm coming at this saying we need to be open and honest with each other about the challenges that are being faced, because otherwise, if we stand around here together and pat each other on the back and say, wow, Trump's going to come in here and he's going to stop all this federal money and he's going to stop all this from happening, and then it doesn't happen, we're going to stand around and go, what the hell happened? How come we were so stupid?
I'm saying it has nothing to do with Trump. I'm just saying under federal law, they have it.
And in many ways, Marcus, to your point, Biden administration just turned a blind eye to these sanctuary cities and states, just providing this. Really appreciate the call, Marcus. Thanks so much. Marcus's line will be open 303-696-1971. Mayor Mike Johnston getting ready. He says for possible federal cuts and federal funding cuts to the city of Denver, saying that we're just going to have to adjust. What do those adjustments look like? Is he going to have to raise taxes on the people of Denver? He's not willing to budge on being a sanctuary city. Says this is part of our culture. We're going to stand by it, even if it means cuts coming from the federal government. And what are those going to look like? Lots to discuss. Phone lines open. Text us as well at 720-819-5115. And who do you blame? Donald Trump or Mike Johnston for this? You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Boy, are we kicking it off on this Tuesday, snowy morning. Be safe out there driving, but a little levity to start your day. You choose the news.
Yes, let's start with a little bit of the fun and silliness. It's what we call America's favorite fake radio news game show. You choose the news. I have spent mere moments this morning scouring the interwebs for really dumb stories about us humans to find these stories and then give them even more ridiculous headlines so that we can play this fake radio news game show. Why? Nobody in charge has any idea we are being this irresponsible with our valuable airtime. So just appreciate it if you'd keep it a secret. Alrighty. Blake Olson is joining us from the newsroom. Here are your headlines this morning, gentlemen. Headline number 1, raw problems. Headline number 2, every little bit helps. Headline number 3, good man equals bad man. And headline number 4, well, that's un-American. Your choice, Mr.
Start
Hunt.
with that one. Well, that's un-American.
Well, that's un-American. Yes, North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un is now rolling out a whole lot more anti-American bans and laws in his country. Most recently, now he is banning things like designer shoes popular in the U.S., sports cars, iPhones, K-pop, YouTube, and hot dogs. Serving a hot dog is now an act of treason in New York, or not New York, in North Korea, because it is viewed as a American food. They say the beloved New York dog is called army base stew in some ways. Hot dogs are eaten with a North Korean that's popular there, and they say now you can no longer serve hot dogs.
Just cover because they don't have treason meat in North Korea.
Yeah,
we don't have meat to serve hot dogs, but we'll blame it on being an American treat.
Yeah, again, who knows what kind of meat is in the hot dog in the first place? So, and is it meat? I'm not even convinced of that.
Would you eat a New York hot dog?
Depends on what's on it. I'm a little particular about it.
One that came from the stand in New York City, would you actually buy one? I've always been fascinated by the people who are like, yeah, that's.
It depends on how my stomach was feeling that day. What kind of diarrhea was I feeling like I was going to have later in the day? That's what I'm kind of setting up for. If I had a lot of time on my hands, then maybe. Alrighty, Blake Olson, your choice, sir. Raw problems, every little bit helps, or good man equals bad man.
Speaking of hot dogs, let's go with raw problems.
Yeah, raw problems. Now, there is some concern about bird flu all over the U.S. In fact, that's one of the reasons you are not seeing eggs in the stores right now, because they had to kill so many hens because of bird flu.
By the way, have you seen how they do that?
No, I haven't.
It's like a giant foam that goes over all the chickens.
Geez.
It's crazy.
Oh, that's awful. So it just stops them from breathing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, God, that's awful. Now, an Inland Empire man says that his beloved pets have recently fell victim to the bird flu virus after drinking contaminated raw milk. He said he had these cats for over 15 years, said 2 of the 4 cats both died after they drank a batch of recently purchased raw milk. He said it was contaminated with the bird flu virus, and he says he has the test to prove that his cats did become infected with the virus, and he proves that he brought the raw milk and has the receipt to prove that was the infection. Since last month, 11 cats have died after consuming raw milk. But don't worry, RFK is going to make it legal for all of us to drink it.
I haven't gotten the raw milk fad.
No, it's stupid.
I don't get it. And my father-in-law is a dairyman. So
no, it's dumb because there's stuff in the milk, and that's why we pasteurize it. So you don't drink the stuff that's going to make you sick. I just don't understand. I don't understand why we've all of a sudden decided that science doesn't matter anymore. But oh well.
It's because his name's Fauci. That's why.
No. It's the dude. It's the RFK Jr. guy that says that science doesn't matter. He's the dude that's promoting raw milk. Fauci's not promoting raw milk. That's not Fauci.
No, but the question was why we don't trust science anymore.
No. Fauci was right about a lot of things. We don't need to have that argument here today. What? You laughed at it? What was it? What?
I know. I just laughed at it. We don't need to have the argument.
No, we don't need to have the argument because he was right about the majority of the stuff. Yes, he was. Every little bit helps, or good man equals bad man.
Good man equals bad man. Sorry.
Good man equals bad man. Now, it seems like a random act of kindness actually took a really bad turn recently this Sunday, St. Louis's Central West End. According to the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department, a 40-year-old man got stuck in the snow while he was trying to enter his parking garage. That's when a gal with an SUV pulled up and said, "Man, I got this. I'll help you. You're the fourth person I've helped out during the snowstorm." And he got him into the parking garage. And that's fantastic. But that's when the helper pulled out his gun and said, "Now give me your car keys." So right after he helped him get out of the snow, he then stole his car keys. Oddly enough, when the victim went to call the police, they came back and the car was still there. The guy just disappeared, but still had the car keys. So now he's changing the locks in the car and everything else. And so the Good Samaritan turned into a bad Samaritan.
Today, if your car gets stuck, you might be getting robbed.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's it. That's all of You Choose the News. Back to you, sir. Yes, that's enough of the fun and frivolity today. Yes,
we need a little bit of it.
It's just a little bit.
It's a tense morning on the phone lines. By the way, you can join the conversation if you like. 303-696-1971 or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line. Lots of text messages coming in. Jason saying, Bill, you are correct. Congress would need to pass a law similar to when Reagan used withholding highway funds to require states to raise the drinking age to 21. Ultimately, the Supreme Court said it's constitutional. Somebody else pointing out that Trump doesn't necessarily have to redirect the funds. He could just withhold them.
Yeah, but he tried that once. He tried that once and got impeached. That was the first impeachment.
Oh, we'll have to talk more about this. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 7 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Tuesday, January 7th. Good morning. Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You're waking up in the greatest country in history. We're off and running. We got a whole hour planned for you of engaging discussions, critical analysis, but most importantly, your phone calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver. Let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olson, Britta Horn's going to be joining us. Britta Horn has announced she's going to be running for state party chair, Colorado Republican state party chair. So possibly a challenge. We haven't heard directly from Dave Williams if he's going to seek another term, but likely a challenge to Dave Williams. And you'll get a chance to meet Britta Horn here in a second and hear why she thinks she can lead better. Also want to take your questions about this. Who should lead the Republican Party in the future? Should we continue with Dave Williams? Should we seek somebody new like Britta Horn? Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Capitalist Law text line, 720-819-5115. Let's turn it over to news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Sorry about that. Good morning, Jeff and Billy. Didn't have my mic up. 21 and snow outside. Take it slow on the roads. You'll get there. Don't worry. Expecting a high of 27 today. Some school districts on 60 and 90-minute delays this morning. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, if you're shoveling your sidewalk, you may want to think about this. Denver property owners will soon be charged a yearly fee for sidewalk repairs. Denver plans to split the fee, adding $75 to each of the city's twice yearly stormwater bills. Denver voters approved the sidewalk fee in 2022, though it took several years to determine how to collect it. Most city property owners will pay the basic rate, while those with larger properties will be charged more due to their impact on the sidewalk network. An investigation is underway after the bodies of two people were discovered in the landing gear of a JetBlue plane at Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport in Florida, of course. The discovery was made overnight in the landing gear compartment during a post-flight maintenance inspection. Why is it always JetBlue? Memorial services for former President Jimmy Carter are shifting to the nation's capital. The Georgia native's remains will be flown to Atlanta, to the D.C. area later this morning. There will be a state funeral for the nation's 39th president on Thursday, along with a national day of mourning. Friday, DJT will be sentenced for a criminal conviction by Judge Mersham in the inauguration derailment case. DJT focusing on the issues with Hugh on Monday, right here on the Salem Network, like Navy and building ships.
We don't build ships anymore. We used to build a ship a day. We don't build ships anymore. We want to get that started, and maybe we'll use allies also in terms of building ships. We might have to. We need ships. China's building, from what I'm hearing, every 4 days, they're knocking out a ship. And we're sitting back watching. We've suffered tremendously during the Biden administration. All he knew about was the Green New Deal, building nonsense, giving money away, putting windmills all over the place and destroying every beautiful plane and field. And
so true. Sunny Hostin on The View. She'll never forget the Fedsurrection on January 6th.
I think we need to find moral clarity, in this country. And I just remember after January 6th, you had someone like Mitch McConnell placing the blame on January 6th where it belonged, squarely on Donald Trump's shoulders. Mm-hmm. And then you started seeing people backtrack that and losing their moral center. You had Condoleezza Rice, I believe, on this very show saying, we need to move on from January 6th. I say no. you don't move on, because January 6th was an atrocity. It was one of the worst moments in American history. And when you think about the worst moments in American history, like World War II, things that happened, like the Holocaust, chattel slavery, we need to never forget, because past becomes prologue if you forget any race.
So I don't think we should ever forget that Sonny's ancestors were slave owners. Hey, let's hear from someone really smart. Joyless Reed.
Hey guys, it's Joy. So a lot of you guys have been asking on the socials what my earrings are. And yes, they are fabulous. Here they are. They are elephant earrings. And the elephant is significant for a couple of reasons. Of course, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated symbol is the elephant. But the
She's a Delta. That's her sorority.
significance of me wearing them today is that elephants never forget. And today is January 6th, 2025, 4 years since the January 6th insurrection. And we, Americans who actually care about democracy and the real peaceful transfer of power, not coups and insurrections, we will never forget. That is the significance of the earrings today. Have a great day.
Okay, you have a great day too. Meta is ending its fact-checking program in favor of a community-based system similar to Community Notes on X. The changes announced today by CEO Mark Zuckerberg will affect Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. Zuckerberg said the idea is to focus on reducing mistakes and restoring freedom of expression. What? Freedom of expression.
No, nobody goes to Facebook for that.
Right? Have you used Facebook lately?
I literally just go to it to see stories from the past. Like, it is so antiquated.
Man,
I want to see
haven't
like
used
my
that in
kids
5
10
years.
years ago, pictures I posted of them 10 years ago. That's it.
No, that's good. It works for something. Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez have settled their divorce. I think they were married like 20 years ago, I think. Former celebrity couple signed an uncontested divorce paper or divorce papers on Monday.
Affleck is getting ahead of those Diddy lists.
Yeah, I think she was in a couple photos at those parties, I believe. Celtics at the Nuggets tonight. Avs over the Panthers 3-1 last night. North Dakota State 35-32 over Montana State for their 10th FCS championship in 14 years. They're 10-1 in title games. That is incredible. And that is not easy to win a championship in the FCS. So congratulations to the Bison. 16 in Lafayette, 20 in Centennial, 21 in Denver. Once again, be careful out there. It's Tuesday. Jeff and Billy continue.
We're seeing massage chairs and that do more things than ever before. Let's leave it.
That was our guest, Rory, last hour. I thought that was hilarious. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
We're under a winter weather advisory through noon. It'll be mostly cloudy with periods of light snow, mainly here in the morning hours. Watch for slick roads. Any additional accumulations will be light. Highs only 20s. Be ready for a cold night tonight in the upper single digits. Watch for fog. Wednesday, sunny, 30s, teens Wednesday night, mostly cloudy. We may see another chance of light snow again with another front during the day Thursday and continued cold. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Well, we have a big announcement coming. Somebody that wants to be the new chairwoman of the Colorado Republican Party. Now, we don't know if Dave Williams is going to seek a second term. That hasn't been clearly announced yet, from my understanding. But Britta Horn, yesterday announcing her candidacy for chair of the Colorado Republican Party. She says, "This is about the future. I'm running for the chair of the Colorado Republican Party with three key priorities: relationships, resources, and responsibility. Colorado Republicans have a bright future, but only if we unite, collaborate, and focus on winning elections. Horn has been active in the party and with many civic organizations in Colorado for decades. She serves on the board of directors of the Lincoln Club of Colorado, is the Colorado chair of Maggie's List, and is an active member of her county party, previously serving as vice chair. She was a delegate to the 2016 Republican National Convention. She has a long commitment to public service, the former treasurer of Routt County from 2012 to 2018, and currently serves as the chief of the Rock Creek Volunteer Fire Department, active in many local, national, international fire chief organization. She's a proud ranch wife and is also involved in numerous agricultural organizations. She joins the Jeff and Bill show this morning. Good morning, Britta Horn.
Morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you this morning?
We're very excited to talk to you. So tell us, why are you the best person to lead the Republican Party moving forward?
I'm the best person because we definitely need to look forward. We need to go back to just some basic common sense strategies and make sure we take care of our relationships, we take care of the resources, and be responsible. My goodness gracious, we have to be accountable and responsible to each other and to the current members, 30% of the state that we have.
Now, Britta, if Dave Williams decides to run again for another term as chairman of the Colorado Republican Party, why are you better than Dave Williams to serve in this role?
I believe because we're hearing from everybody that's so disenfranchised because they have figured out this way, this other side, this last 2 years of just minimizing and reducing our numbers because we have to go through some kind of purity test to pass their test and all the issues that have been going on for the last 2 years, and we've got no accountability for it, no transparency for it. It's time for something new. It's time for Britta Horn.
Now, what we've heard from supporters of Dave Williams, we've had him on the show as well, is that, look, we had victories after Ken Buck, after KBB. It was loss after loss after loss. Under Dave Williams, we have removed the super minority of Republicans from the House, or at least the Democrats no longer have the super majority there. And you got Gabe Evans' victory in Congressional District 8, Jeff Hurd, Jeff Crank, Lauren Boebert. Republicans won this last cycle. What's your response to that?
And they what? Bless. Okay, I guess I get to go this way. Bless their hearts. We did all that, the grassroots people, in spite of them. When they were bringing out doing pre-primaries, what was it? 15 out of the 16 didn't even make it. The only one that made it that I understand is Lauren Boebert, who was already a congresswoman, just going to a different district. We did it in spite of them. And what I saw, hand over fist, time after time, were all the volunteers that were willing to get the work done outside of the party. So of course they're going to take our wins, but they were definitely ours. And the people who did the work know who did the work.
Talking to Britta Horn, she's announced her candidacy for chair of the Colorado Republican Party. So Britta, I worked for the state party, worked in some very successful years for the state party. It's an operation, right? It's voter registration, it's fundraising, it's coalition development, it's candidate recruitment. It is really the nuts and bolts of winning elections. Help share your experience winning elections that can be translated now to the state level.
Well, I think winning elections I did myself, and I ran for county treasurer up in Routt County and the public trustee. Had a term and a half there. And my wins have come from other people, because also I was able, I don't know if you looked at my resume over on LinkedIn, and you're more than welcome to, or on my website, brittahorn.com. I also worked for Trump in 2020 down in New Mexico. And we all know we won that too. So I know how to make all these wins for the candidates, getting the right candidates to be the right candidates with their contingent, their citizens, the citizens in the area. Because a Republican candidate in Summit County is going to look way different than a Republican candidate in Weld County. So we have to understand the differences, that we can't be all broad stroke, one type of people, one, like I said, purity test, one narrow path. We have to have all types of Republicans and welcome everybody to the Republican Party.
And Britta, how do you build a broad coalition like that, right? Let's, for instance, say the log cabin Republicans, right? LGBTQ Republicans, but the Republican Party platform is geared towards protecting traditional marriage. So help me understand how you're going to build a broad coalition while maintaining the platform principles that make Republicans unique.
Right. I think that's exactly it. Is we have that broad stroke, and we have to welcome all different Republicans that are different for our Colorado. Colorado is way different than when I first got here in 1989. So when we have the log cabin Republicans, they've been a part of it. We had a really great CD1 candidate, Valdemar Archuleta. He did a great job, and he knew what exactly he was doing, and he was speaking to his constituents. We have to be able to do that and understand that and love everybody on it. If we're going to do traditional values, we're certainly not going to go down the religion path, because this organization isn't about religion. That isn't one of the purity tests. I'm going to keep saying that. We have to be able to be broad stroke and have different people in different areas for our greater Colorado, for the greater good.
How do you, Britta Horn, for instance, maintain the party's commitment to the sanctity of life, which is what makes us Republicans, I believe, in a state that allows for abortion, and the voters here want totally unrestricted abortion, even up to the point of viability right before birth, and now making taxpayers provide funding for it. How do we get victories on the sanctity of life while maintaining our commitments in a state where the voters are pretty pro-choice?
Absolutely. So we're at the point now that they have everything on the table. They got everything they wanted for pro-choice. I don't even hear that anymore. But what we need to do now is start being better at telling stories, the heart of Colorado, what we are looking for. So finding the organizations that are still going to be pro-choice, pro-life, and then making sure that we get that wrapped around, because it's off the table now. There's nothing else that the Democrats can do to get more of whatever they got. They've already got everything. So at this point, we need to start telling stories, telling from the heart, start working on those coalitions, and start chipping away and getting it back.
Talking to Britta Horn, she's announced her candidacy for chair of the Colorado Republican Party. Britta, I want to talk tactics now. Let's start first with voter registration. I think we saw from Scott Pressler in Pennsylvania that getting out there day after day, going to the markets, right? In his case, he went to the Amish markets where he was just talking to voters. Voter registration. I noticed recently that we have added about 1 million people to the state in the last decade or so, but the number of registered Republicans in Colorado has actually gone down. Have we been doing a good enough job registering people as Republican voters? What's your plan to do that?
I think the plan is what I did 3 summers ago. I did bring, with Maggie's list, we brought in Scott Pressler. And Scott and I circled the square state on a summer month, 9 days, and just going to group after group after group, teaching get out the vote, how to do that. All those pieces that he did and did so successfully in in Pennsylvania. So for Colorado, we need to do this, mimic the same things. We didn't have a table at the gun shows. We didn't have any tables at the concerts, all the concerts that were downtown this summer. We need to start reaching out and doing the same thing, taking that cookie cutter approach, because it's worked really well in Pennsylvania. It's going to certainly work well in Colorado.
I'm very happy to hear that, because so much of politics isn't sexy. It's just grassroots work, right? It's just work. It's spending time with people and talking to them. I'm very happy to hear that. Let's talk fundraising. Money in politics is the gasoline that drives the car. If you don't have it, the car doesn't go anywhere. And so the state party needs to be fundraising to help the candidates, to provide that important resource for them. I know they're limited, but give us some background on your fundraising capabilities and how you plan to raise money to help Republican candidates in the future.
Well, I'm very fortunate to be a very good fundraiser. So knowing that, hearing now, and we've heard for the last 2 years, so many checkbooks in Colorado have been closed because of the party and the direction they're taking and how they're and their actions. So I know I'll have already open doors. People have already called. We're going to start having them pledge money, and we're going to start going into everybody's office and ensuring that trust, ensuring that accountability, ensuring that transparency, and making sure we all work towards that goal and start getting, we're already behind. I already feel like we're 6 months behind from the Democrats with the 26th election are coming up. So, and I also have this other one when I was the president of Lincoln Club of Colorado, of leadership program of the Rockies in 2014. I was voted in as the president, and we were the first class to get over $100,000 to be donated for the next class the next year. So I know I have the ability to get the job done for fundraising.
Britta Horn, candidate for the Colorado GOP chair, joining Jeff and Bill live. I want to go back to some of the conversation earlier. You had talked about your work in New Mexico. Can you refresh my memory? Did you say you went to New Mexico? What did you do there? And you talked about winning. What were the wins in New Mexico that you can point to?
So the wins in New Mexico, because that was 2020, and I kept on getting kicked out of New Mexico and being sent home by the governor. So I worked for the RNC for the Trump victory team. And when I was in Farmington, I had 13 counties all the way over to Raton down to almost Albuquerque. And we were just able to get their groups together, their organizations together, every county together, and start working towards better ways to reach out and find volunteers, get that work done. Again, that grassroots work, making the phone calls, knocking on doors. And we came up with this great idea, and it was called a pop-up event. So we had a pop-up tent and a trailer, and we would just show up in all these different places around the community, within the county, within all those counties, and start having events and having people get really excited, voting for Trump, signing up, and doing the grassroots work. So we really put together a good coalition.
Talking to Britta Horn, candidate for chair of the Colorado Republican Party. So I'm going to get just brass tacks here, Britta. My perspective is that there's about a 15-point gap statewide in Colorado that I'm just not confident that a Republican can overcome. Even a great Republican, well-funded, can overcome a 15-point gap. So what are your plans to chip away, get bigger victories in the state house, state senate, and then, eventually, maybe, what are your projections? When do you think we could win statewide again?
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you very much, Jeff. So what I saw right after we had the election, we had three seats that were needed a lot of ballot curing done. And if anybody doesn't know what ballot curing is, it's when somebody turns in their ballot, something's wrong with the signature, something's wrong with something, and they have to come into the clerk's office to get it rectified, to get their vote to be counted. And the day after election, we realized that Weld County was about, I can't remember, I think it was 15 or 16,000 curing ballot that need to be cured. And then in Adams County was about 18,000. So we got together with three of the candidates, Gabe Evans, Ryan Gonzalez, and Daniel Woog, and we just started making phone calls with a friend of mine, Natalie Tennant, and we just started finding over 80 volunteers that were willing to make the phone calls for all that. So when I see that chipping away, I'm seeing that so many people wanted to help, and we just didn't give them a list of 2,000 to call. We gave them a list of 30 to call, and they got great success, and they came back for more. So it's managing the volunteers and start chipping away at that. And in doing that, we had to talk to unaffiliated. And if people don't understand, the unaffiliated helped us get across the finish line for the three of them too, because they realized that they needed to get their ballots cured, and we just needed to find out where they stood in issues in the Republican Party. And we were really able to see that independents, which is going to probably meet probably 50% here in July or August, it's predicted with the motor voter records, and it's going to be more than the two other parties combined. That's the group we need to start working on. 70% of Colorado are not Republicans. We have a lot of work to do.
Why do you think that is, Britta Horn? Why do you think people go, and it's not we're running over to be Democrats, they're just saying we don't want to be a part of either party? Why do you think that is, and how do you change that? I mean, we want people active in the Republican Party.
Well, absolutely. And I think if they need to see leadership, they need to see that we're being accountable, showing that transparency like I showed earlier. But when I first came to Colorado in 89, and then I got married in 1991 to a rancher, he was an independent his whole life. He didn't become a Republican until he started voting for his wife. So finding out that majority of Colorado thinks that way, that's not traditionally where I grew up in Chicago in the 70s. It was always two parties, maybe, vote early, vote often, but it was still just two parties. Colorado has just such an independent spirit. And I believe the ranchers, because they understand that either party cannot be devastating to their career and to their livestock and to their lifestyle. So we really need to make sure that we're believing that when the independents are probably becoming more Republican than we think, they've just watched this spiral down effect, and we just need to change that.
All right, Britta Horn, candidate for Colorado GOP chair. Final question here. You currently serve as the chief of the Rock Creek Volunteer Fire Department. I think the chairmanship role is a full-time, dedicated role. Will you be devoting full-time to your work as chairwoman of the Colorado Republican Party?
Absolutely. I'm very blessed in our volunteer fire department to have a great crew, to go on the calls that I don't go on. And then we're in a small community between Steamboat and Vail. If we run even over 100 calls, that's a big year. So we're in good shape, and I'll make sure I do it full time.
Glad to hear that. Britta Horn, thank you so much for your time today. She is now a candidate for chairwoman of the Colorado Republican Party. You can follow her on X at Real Britta Horn. Real Britta Horn, I believe. I just had it up and now I've lost it. Yeah, Real Britta Horn.
We can ask her. What is it?
Real Britta Horn is her X account. She's very active there, so you can follow her. Britta, thanks so much for your time today.
Gentlemen. Thank you, gentlemen. I enjoyed it.
Great. This will be interesting to watch. I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I have not heard that Dave Williams is all the way in for a second run.
I haven't heard that either, and that's odd to me. Again, not a member of either party, so I'm just an outside observer, so I don't get in the information or in the inside conversations. But from an outside observer, he seemed to have a pretty decent election cycle.
Yep.
Now I see why Britta is outlining her objections to Dave, because she's making the case, and did a decent job of it, that it was in spite of Dave, not because of. Now that's an interesting conversation, especially when she points back to the state party endorsing people in the primaries and none of them making it through, and then having wins.
Some of them.
All but two. I mean, two were all the rest of them failed, I believe. So you had two, over 10. That's not a good ratio of the party choosing. And again, I'm not. That's not necessarily Dave's purview. There were some directions from the committee that runs the party, but that's a good question as well as to the people that were running the party. You chose two that made it through the primary. What does that mean about your connection to the average rank and file voter? And Britta comes to the table with some bona fides of moving those grassroots voters. So it's an interesting conversation, and I think that may be the crux of the conversation going forward with Dave Williams is, was it because or in spite of?
I mean, we had Gabe Evans on who said he got zero.
Yeah,
help. That was his exact quote.
Yeah,
zero help,
and that's a big deal.
And that is a huge, because if Gabe hadn't won,
if
Gabe hadn't won, think about that.
There's a lot of them.
That is wild. So I mean, it's like I said, I work for the state party.
Yeah,
it is not a sexy job.
Oh no, not at all.
If you want to be lauded and celebrated, go be a candidate. Right. For at least a while, you'll be lauded and celebrated. But it is basically like the conditioning coach. That's the best way I can describe it in sports. Yeah. You're not the head coach. You're the conditioning coach. When it runs really well, you're just making sure that the basic blocking and tackling necessary to win elections, which is voter registration, fundraising, get out the vote, coalition development, event planning, and I talked to somebody that was thinking about, serving in politics in this capacity. And I just said, you gotta be willing to sit at a county fair table.
Yeah.
For like a week. And just talk to people and be like, can I get you to register to vote as a Republican? Scott Pressler did this and won Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and think about, for our listeners, think about in the course of your lifetime, how often you have felt like walking up to the chairman of any party and going, gosh, you're doing a great job right now. They don't get those conversations. The conversation is never about how good you're doing at your job.
Yeah.
The conversation is always about problems. It was one of my previous jobs. I hated the fact that I had a phone on my desk because when that phone rang, it was a problem I had to solve. No one called me and said, here's a free trip to Disneyland. No one called and said, I'm just checking to see how you're doing and want to tell you how great you're doing.
No.
None of that. Every time that phone rang, it was a problem.
Yeah.
And that's what you're signing up for when you're
And
running
the
a
other
state
thing
party.
too is name me somebody that was the chairman of the Colorado Republican Party who's in now a better position in their career
Yeah.
than they were when they walked into it.
Who hasn't turned to recreational drugs and a lot of day drinking.
I
I'm
mean,
teasing.
Ryan Call no longer
Yeah.
has his law license in Colorado.
Yeah.
Who knows where Ken Buck is? KBB's been able to bounce back a little bit into the State Board of Education. But Steve Howes, I mean, it hasn't been a launching point into greater and greater things for your career.
It is not at all.
You just have to be willing to do the work. I hate saying that because I sound like Kamala Harris,
I know.
but that's what it is.
Now, my friend Jeff, I got to talk to you about a group of people that I've been working with, people that have helped me do the work in order to not change politics, but change the pain that I'm dealing with in my life. As I get older, I had a whole bunch of older people around me, and I thought that's just what happened, is that as you get older, you all of a sudden just things hurt, because I heard the older people in my life complaining about that, but it doesn't have to be that way. I used to live my life in daily pain, but thanks to the team at Balance Wellspace, all that pain is gone. I want you to talk to them as soon as you can. BalanceWellspace.com. They've set up brand new offices in Lowry, right across from Hangar 2, and there's plenty of parking. But the reason you want to talk to them, integrative medicine. I'm sure you've got some doctors that are working with you right now. You go all over the city, and it may take a couple of weeks or so to make all those appointments. When do you think the last time those doctors got together and talked about your care is? Did they over the holidays? Do you think that they sat down this new year and wanted to revisit where your care was? And they got on a conference call and they sent emails and no, they didn't. No. The treatment that you're getting in that one office may be fine, but is it working well with all of the treatments you're getting? That's the difference at Balance Wellspace. Integrative medicine under one roof, trigger point injections, chiropractic care, neuropathic care, wave therapy, physical rehabilitation, regenerative care, and a whole bunch of cutting edge technology as well that simply has to be seen and experienced in order to be believed. Now, check it out today. Visit balancewellspace.com. It'll give you an idea of what they can do, but most importantly, make your pain evaluation appointment. Go and see them. Make the appointment. They go to work on you. They come in and they ask you about what hurts. They ask you what you haven't been doing, where the pain is, and then they take the pictures. They do the poking, the prodding, and they manipulate some joints, and then they put together a custom plan that is all about you and your life, taking away that pain, getting you back to doing the things you weren't doing before. Other day, I was in the office there and talking to someone who this wonderful older Asian woman, and how she was talking about her balance, and that what she was doing is she's looking at increasing her core strength and the strength in her knees because she had fallen, and she's doing some physical rehabilitation. And there is some stuff with traction and some stuff with Stnexus, which is like electronic stimulation of muscles, that has been amazing for her. She now feels that even when she's walking around on the snow and the ice, she feels stable. She said before, walking around Colorado in the winter, every time she stepped on that snow and that ice, it was as if, is this the time I'm going to fall? And is this the time I'm going to have to go to the hospital? Now, she's going out there going, I'm not worried about going from my doorstep to my car because I'm going to fall, because of how strong I feel. I want you to have that same experience, but you've got to take the first step. BalanceWellspace.com. BalanceWellspace.com. Set up your personal pain evaluation today to make sure that, hey, by late winter to the early spring, you're feeling great. You're going to be hiking. You're going to be doing stuff you never thought possible, but it's all because of the team at Balance Wellspace. Talk to them. Have them make the same change in your life they made in mine. And when you reach out to them, tell them you heard about them here on the Jeff and Bill Show, because boy, does it help us out. We appreciate it.
That's great to hear, Bill. Is that Steve House on the line?
I have no idea. All I do is it rings, and I just push things on.
You're gonna watch
on hold.
Jeff
I have
Hunt
no
eat
clue.
crow next.
I have no clue what's going on.
Steve's on the
Things
line.
just ring.
And he probably has some words for me. Steve, I love you. And I'll give you the time in just a second. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. I love this guy. And of course, we were talking about like how hard it's been to be the chairperson of the Colorado Republican Party and then come out of that. And then he calls, which I love. I just think it's amazing. Steve House joining the Jeff and Bill Show. Steve, how you been, buddy?
I'm good, man. How are you? I love you too, man.
Oh, great to hear from you. I got so many. We got a lot to talk about. First, I want to hear your thoughts on Dave Williams and Britta Horn. Where do you land on that?
Well, the party's pretty divided at the moment. So, first of all, my personal opinion on Britta Horn is she's one of those people who works. I mean, really, really works hard. And when you work for others, not just yourself in a political sense, you need that kind of mindset when you're the state chair. She's also somebody who's pretty good at understanding the rules. She's been on teller committees for me and other things. So I really like the fact that she would go back to a grounded, rules following membership organization where people can count on what the decisions are going to be. I don't dislike Dave. I've talked to him a few times. I just worry that the party's divided enough because the rules were changed. Things were done I don't think that were correct or accurate. And people get upset about that. And maybe it's time to do something different.
Talking to Steve House, former chairman of the Colorado Republican Party. Steve, talk about your time there. How many years did you serve as chairman? And, what would be your advice to Britta?
So I was there from early in 15 through 17, and then I joined the Political Action Committee, the Independent Expenditure Committee for the party after that. Then I worked as the CEO of the party when Ken Buck was initially elected. I did that for a little while. So I've been there for a while. I think what Britta's got to do, of course, is go back and make the statement out to the membership that, look, we have bylaws, we have an objective. My job is not to play favorites. My job is to get people elected. It's to do it effectively. It's to follow the process and the rules. And advanced of all some, I don't think we're going to take over that state again immediately, but you've got to make progress somewhere. So target some areas where progress can be made and then go do that.
I agree entirely with you. Steve House. So Steve, give folks an update of what you're doing now.
So I've spent since 2021, I came out to the Midwest to help with my mother. She's got COPD and aging. Finally got her moved in with my sister not too long ago. So just about resolved on that. There's a rumor I'm coming back to Colorado, but we don't need to get into that right now. So I
run for governor?
Campaign. Let's definitely not get into that discussion right now. I worked on, I was volunteered in Georgia and North Carolina to get out the vote in the Trump campaign. Also did a bunch of hurricane relief work there. I'm still involved in healthcare. I do a lot of healthcare consulting. The healthcare system is essentially failing us. I mean, it's really too expensive and not enough access and a whole bunch of stuff. So definitely involved in politics in a lot of ways around it. But, fundamentally a healthcare consultant and enjoying life. So far, I was involved as a plaintiff in a lawsuit in Colorado against Jenna Griswold on campaign finance. That's still pending. We did all of our testimony in the summer, and the judge has the case. We suspect it's going to go to appeal, but so be it. We need to get some freedom in the campaign finance category.
Steve House, former chairman of the Colorado Republican Party, still very active. Steve, if people want to keep up with you, how do they?
It's a tough thing. Probably the best thing is LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. I haven't spent a lot of time on social media because it's distracting. I'm too busy getting things done so they can do that. And certainly Britta Horn knows how to get a hold of me. I'd love to tell you the 6 or 7 stories her husband told me about her, but if I did that, it would probably tank her candidacy. The one thing I will say, Jeff, that I think it's important to note, I will never forget being at the 2016 convention in Cleveland. The bulk of the delegates were going to vote for Cruz. Britta was one of them. And before the vote, she realized, and she came to me and said, I'm going to go for Trump. And I said, you realize people are going to give you a hard time. Are you sure you want to do this? And she said, you know what? It's what I believe in, and it's the right thing to do. And I was impressed with that moment. And she took the shot. She made the vote and got a lot of crap for it, but she did the right thing. And that's why I like Britta.
Steve, you remember welcoming Donald Trump onto stage at the Western Conservative Summit in 2016?
I absolutely do. I still have the pictures on my phone. I know exactly where they are. You know what? I didn't tell people. I don't think you knew this story either. So at that point, I was getting a lot of death threats regarding not being able to endorse Trump until after Cruz was out. And so he comes on stage and he shakes my hands and he says, so don't go away yet. We need to talk to each other a little bit here. People in the media need to know we like each other, and I totally support you. And he said, what do you want to talk about? And I said, well, I just want you to know my wife's better looking than your wife. And he said, really? He started laughing. There's a great picture of him laughing, and he hit me in the shoulder. And he goes, where is she? And I said, she's not here, Mr. Trump. And he said, well, I need to meet her. I said, it's not likely. I don't think she wants to meet you. She's going to vote for you, but she doesn't want to meet you. And he gave me crap about that twice later, about never knowing that my wife was better looking than Melania.
That's amazing. Well, there's so many stories there to talk about, but you remember the convention and then the tweet that came from the state party and all that. And then that was a moment for conservatives to overcome that gap and get behind Trump. And you are key to that. Steve House, bro, this was a total surprise. I really appreciate you taking time to join the Jeff and Bill show today.
When I get back to town, I'll take you to lunch. I promise.
I love
All
that.
Right.
Great to catch up. And thanks for giving us a call.
Too.
Steve House, former chairman of the Colorado Republican Party. We'll get to the other lines. Jeff, Rob, you're up next. Steve's line's open. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We've got jam-packed phone lines. We're going to get to all promise to Heidi in the hall. Good morning, Heidi. Great to hear from you.
Hey, good morning. Happy New Year.
Good morning, Jeff and Bill. How are you guys?
Oh, we're doing
Good. How
well.
are you? Stay warm?
I'm good. I'm actually hanging out in Florida doing some meetings this week, so it's a little warmer here than where you are.
You're having a much better morning.
She's called in to tease us.
I won't rub it in too much. But hey, guys, I wanted to call in. I'm not sure if Britta's still on because I just wanted to pop in and talk about the chair race, if that's okay.
Please do. Britta is not on, but love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think we need someone that can bring both sides together, no doubt, that knows the grassroots, but also knows a lot of the donors and is connected to kind of the heartbeat of Colorado. And I've known Britta for a decade, and we've been through lots of races and ups and downs and all arounds. And Jeff, I know you know her pretty well too. And I do think she's got what it takes. I think she's got a heart for this state. I think she's got a great attitude. She's so upbeat and positive. And I really think she could be kind of the sunshine that brings in some new rays to the party. And I feel confident that she could do a good job.
Yeah, I got that sense. And I've known, like you mentioned, Britta for a long time. She is a coalitions builder. She likes to have people on the same page working in the right direction. But one of the questions we talked about when she was on was, how do you maintain those principles while building a big tent, right? Because you are going to have principles that are just that are in opposition sometimes to where people land, like, for instance, the log cabin Republicans, LGBTQ. But the platform and what Dave Williams has been celebrated among some grassroots conservatives for is he is committed to the platform. We're not going to put up with the rainbow flags. We're not going to put up with the trans of kids that are taking place, and I'm going to be bold on it. So do you think Britta can maintain our deep commitment to Republican principles while building a broader coalition?
I do. And I think the way we build a broader coalition is find places in that platform where we can all agree. We all agree kids should not be exposed to those sections. I mean, I don't know any conservatives who don't believe that.
Right.
I think we all agree that we've got to protect the border and we've got to do all we can to address immigration. I think we all agree we've got to get back to fiscal responsibility in this state and get our education system turned around. So we focus on the places where we can agree. A coach a long time ago told me, when you disagree with someone, this is a business coach, you find little places where you can find connections and you build trust that way. And, I get along great with Dave. I get along great with Hope, all those guys. But I think we need a fresh perspective. And I don't think Dave's running again, is my gut. And so I think it's the opportunity to turn things in a different direction. Britta knows the rural Colorado folks very, very well, and they need a voice right now. They are desperate to have a voice, especially with what's going on with wolves and energy, et cetera. So I think Britta is a good option for going forward. And I don't know who else is going to jump in, but I think it could be a healing moment for our party.
Talking to Heidi Ganahl. Heidi, we got about 30 seconds left. Tell folks about Rocky Mountain Voice, because you will be tracking all this at Rocky Mountain Voice.
Oh, thanks, Jeff. We will. RockyMountainVoice.com. It's a website that provides you unabashedly right-of-center news. None of the liberal BS, none of the fake news. So you can get real truth at RockyMountainVoice.com. And we've also got a daily newsletter that goes out, the Mountain Minute. You can subscribe for free. There's no ads, paywalls, subscription fees. And it's going out to almost 200,000 people now. So we're reaching a lot of people across Colorado.
Wow, that's fantastic. Heidi Ganahl, thanks so much for taking time to give us your perspective on the GOP chair race here in Colorado.
Thanks, guys. Good morning and have a great day.
You too. So Heidi Ganahl, also active on X. Interesting to hear from these folks. I love the fact they're dialing in. These are major leaders in the Republican Party in Colorado sharing their perspective.
And I think it's interesting that Heidi has been reading the tea leaves and doesn't think Dave is going to run again. I think that, for me, was the largest insight inside of that, because she's at least connected. And I'm not saying that she's right, but she will have heard the rumors.
I disagree. I'll tell you why next. I think Dave's in, unless there's an administration position for him. I think he's still in. We'll have to talk about it. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 8 a.m. Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Just wrapped up a conversation with candidate for Colorado GOP chair, Britta Horn. Want to get your thoughts on that. We have not heard a direct announcement, from my understanding, from Dave Williams as to whether or not he'll continue as chairman of the Colorado Republican Party. Had a good term. Got rid of the Democrat supermajority in the House. Gabe Evans elected. That's a seat flip. But people saying that the state party's not doing enough or that's too divided. Want to hear from you and your thoughts. Let's go to the phone lines. Jeff. Good morning, Jeff. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning.
Good morning, y'all. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, what's on your mind?
Absolutely.
So I've known Britta probably longer than anybody you've had on today, or probably will have on. I've known her for a long time. That is the hardest working woman, both her personal life and a political scene that I've ever been around.
No, it's incredibly difficult. Not a job that lends itself to a lot of advancement in the political space, at least recently. So why do you think Britta would be best?
So it's time for some new blood at the party chairman. And here's the problem that we face. And I'll tell you this directly, is you all on the Front Range, Republicans, think that your candidates on the Front Range are better than the Western Slope candidates. That's a fight we have all the time. So, and you guys always seem to vote for the popular person, not the real conservative like Britta, but the popular person.
Now, why do you think candidates is one aspect? How about Dave Williams' performance? Didn't Dave have some important victories? There were losses under Ken Buck, KBB, and things seem to turn around under Dave Williams. Thoughts on that?
I thought Dave did a fairly good job, but it's time for some new blood, and it's not going to come from old blood that's already been in there, and it's not going to come from the Front Range. Now, I know you guys are resistant over there. You're just like the Democrats. Republicans on the Front Range are just like Democrats. You think you want all the power on the Front Range. What did President Trump say his first time he ran? What the hell do you have to lose, right? So what's
Jeff,
wrong with the Western Slope chairman?
Now, wasn't Dave Williams like supposed to be new blood as well, because it was getting KBB out? And that was too, at the time, I remember that. And again, I'm not part of the GOP, but I remember at the time, the argument was that KBB was too institutional. She was too connected. She's too much of a lawyer type and runs with the wrong crowd. And Dave Williams was supposed to be that outsider, and he leaned into that. So are you telling me that we need to have an outsider from the outsider? Or are we just saying that the new person is an outsider just because it sounds cool? I'm curious.
No, there needs to be an outsider from the outsider.
But with Britta's experience, Britta did. But hang on a second. Britta outlined some really good, solid bona fides of stuff that she'd been doing to work with the party, including doing some great grassroots stuff outside of the state in New Mexico. Doesn't that then make her an insider?
No, it doesn't. Not in Colorado.
Huh,
the insiders in Colorado are all on the Front Range, all of them. And for some reason, the so-called Republicans, and I say that lightly, think that they have to have control on the Front Range just like the Democrats do. I'm telling you, Republicans on the Front Range are no different than the Democrats.
Interesting. Jeff, I really appreciate the call. I didn't know there was such a division between West Slope Republicans and Front Range Republicans.
I could see it. Yeah.
I could see it, but it doesn't come on my side. I'm very happy to have West.
That's interesting, though. I hadn't heard that. Yeah, division before. It's interesting, though, but I'm going to look into that. And that might explain some things as far as why we get some votes in certain areas, certain directions.
Yeah,
interesting.
That's right. Let's go to Rob. Good morning, Rob. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning, Rob.
Hey, good morning. How are you guys today?
Good. How are you?
You ready for Buffalo?
Oh, yeah.
I think the weather's already come. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, great. Well, I've known Britta for about a decade as well. You've had some great guests. And I know her through the CPAC organization, the Conservative Political Action Committee.
Oh, yeah.
And she's great. She's, Jeff was absolutely right. She works really, really hard. She will get it done. And she's so personal. You just enjoy working with her.
Now, what do you think?
She ran all the volunteers. Yes.
Now, Rob, give us your 30-second elevator speech. If you were given 30 seconds to talk to our listeners and say, this is why Britta would be the best choice for the Colorado GOP chair, what's that 30-second elevator speech? What's your sales pitch?
Well, I think you probably, I've been listening in, there's, entrenched, old timers or boomers, and we do need new blood. She is new blood. And she's very, she'll get it done. I mean, she'll talk to everybody. She'll do all those. You said it's not a glamorous position. And, she will put her shoulder against it and push and push and push. I've seen her do that over the number of years at CPAC. She's a force of nature, and she's so approachable. And she will talk to everybody. And she's funny. She's very funny. And I think she'd be a great ad. I think she's going to do a wonderful job.
Yeah, Rob, really appreciate the call.
Yeah,
thanks so much.
Have a good day.
Bill, to your point, the quote new blood argument, I don't think works. To be honest,
I don't think in this situation
we've just kept going through new blood. I want to see track record. I want to see commitment. And when Britta points that out, and when the callers, like we just had, point that out, she organized the volunteers for CPAC. She's done this with the Lincoln Club. She's done this with LPR. She did voter outreach in New Mexico. When it's an actual track record, that is because it's the top. You're the top of the party. And so you got to have that track record, and just making the argument new blood.
I also want to see something leaning into your coach analogy. And it's a lot like the strength and conditioning coach. I want to see a plan from the coach. The idea being, and even if it is strength and conditioning, if you were the head coach of the Denver Broncos or the Nuggets or even the Rockies, I'm not sure they do strength and conditioning at the Rockies because they don't seem to even play baseball there. But I'm just saying that if you're going to have that interview, you're going to ask, what plans do you have for our players? Where do you see the weaknesses in what we're doing right now? What's the average day look like? Yeah. What are the goals, and how are we going to judge you based on the strength and conditioning? And then most importantly, what are you going to do to prevent those injuries? And the same thing you got to go through and say, how can you build off of the wins that we've had? Where are the wins accidental? Where were they intentional? How can we work better together as a team? And like you talk about conditioning, how can we get everybody stronger? How do we build the strength and conditioning of the Colorado GOP in order to make sure that during the next contest, during the next game, just like the Broncos are going through some warm-ups and going through some strength and conditioning even this week, that you're ready to play the big game when it's on Sunday? That's what I want to see.
Great analogy. Love it. All right, let's check in on news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, guys. 21 with snow outside. Take it slow on the roads. Be patient. Expecting a high of 27 today, hopefully. Some school districts on 60 and 90-minute delays. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, Aurora Mayor Mike Kaufman says Denver has used nonprofit organizations to covertly place illegal immigrants in his city. Denver Mayor Mike Johnston said Monday he rejects the allegations completely.
We've also been very focused on public safety in all those spaces. We were aware of early on and kept track of any concerns about gang activity. We intervened early, made some arrests, charged people, and we have not seen that problem.
Kaufman criticized Johnston in an opinion piece published in the Denver Gazette. Kaufman claims Denver quietly inserted language into contracts with two nonprofits allowing the placement of illegals in Aurora without prior notice. Kaufman says the contracts let Johnston claim that he didn't know they would be sent to Aurora. Johnston says he was surprised by the criticism for from someone he considers a confidant and a friend. Homelessness in Colorado increased by around 30% in 2024, according to the latest point-in-time count. According to the findings, over 4,000 more people were counted in 2024 than 2023. The total number of people experiencing either sheltered or unsheltered homelessness was over 18,000. The number of people and families experiencing homelessness also increased around 134% from 2023. Britta Horn, candidate for Colorado GOP chair, on last hour with Jeff and Bill. Why is she different and the best candidate?
I believe because we're hearing from everybody that's so disenfranchised because they have figured out this way, this other side, this last 2 years of just minimizing and reducing our numbers because we have to go through some kind of purity test to pass their test and all the issues that have been going on for the last 2 years, and we've got no accountability for it, no transparency for it. It's time for something new. It's time for Britta Horn.
The body of former President Jimmy Carter will depart from Georgia for D.C. today. The late president's family, members of Congress, and other dignitaries will attend a private ceremony after Carter's body arrives this afternoon. He will then lie in state in the rotunda until his funeral at the National Cathedral on Thursday. Former co-defendants of DJT trying to stop the release of special counsel Jack Smith's final report related to his federal investigations, all designed to destroy the Trumpster once again. The report has been expected to be released in the coming days before Trump will be sworn in as the next president. Trump's lawyers sent a letter to Attorney General Merrick Garland saying Smith doesn't have the power to publicly publish the report because Judge Eileen Cannon previously ruled his appointment as special counsel was unlawful. Court proceedings for Luigi Mangione are being pushed to the middle of next month. It gives both sides an extra 30 days to prepare for pretrial proceedings and the trial itself. Mangione has pled not guilty to several state charges in connection to the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson in front of a Manhattan hotel. And then this lady, Molly Berkeley Fletcher, a former CIA analyst. She has Trump derangement syndrome and made just a lame video.
So we can forget you. Not talking trash if I call you fascist. And unlike you, I know what that means. You went to the dumpster to get you a cabinet. All soulless, spineless clowns and freaks.
That video is amazing, by the way.
Is that crazy?
I mean,
wow.
And she's a pretty senior analyst in the Central Intelligence
That's what
Agency.
I understand.
It gives you a sense of what's happening in that.
Man, we have people like that in the CIA. It's time to bring the bulldozer in. Absolutely. It's bad. If you want to check it out, once again, her name is Molly Berkeley Fletcher. I don't know if that's her husband in the video, but oh my God, feel sorry for their neighbors. Celtics at the Nuggets tonight. Avs over the Panthers 3-1 last night. North Dakota State 35-32 over Montana State for their 10th FCS championship in 14 years. In college football, they're 10-1 in title games. 16 in Lafayette, 20 in Centennial, and 21 in Denver. It is Tuesday. Jeff and Billy continue on this snowy day, snowy morning. News Talk 710 KNUS.
We're under a winter weather advisory through noon. It'll be mostly cloudy with periods of light snow, mainly here in the morning hours. Watch for slick roads. Any additional accumulations will be light. Highs only 20s. Be ready for a cold night tonight in the upper single digits. Watch for fog. Wednesday, sunny, 30s, teens Wednesday night, mostly cloudy. We may see another chance of light snow again with another front during the day Thursday and continued cold. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center. We're under a winter weather advisory through noon. It'll be mostly cloudy with periods of light snow, mainly here in the morning hours. Watch for slick roads. Any additional accumulations will be light. Highs only 20s.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Headlines in the Wall Street Journal. Trudeau resign as voters sour on his vision for Canada. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said Monday he would resign, making him the latest global progressive leader to fall from power and leaving Canada rudderless as it prepares to contend with President-elect Donald Trump's threats to upend free trade in North America. Trudeau's resignation caps a decade-long political career, during which the 53-year-old rose to global political stardom as a young, handsome, and unabashed progressive whose appeal faded over time until he became so unpopular that his Liberal Party forced him to step down before elections that must happen no later than October. Trudeau said that he would stay on as prime minister until the party picks a new leader, a process that could take months and draw from the ranks of critics who pushed him out. The Liberal Party trails badly in the polls to Conservatives led by Pierre, I can't pronounce his last name. Maybe Ian can help us here. A populist who would be elected prime minister if the elections were held. Now, to provide some insight, good friend of mine from Colorado Christian University, Dr. Ian Clary, associate professor of historical theology, a Canadian who has his hand on the pulse of what's happening in Canada. Good morning, Dr. Clary. Thanks for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning.
Really great to be on here with you. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Well, give us a sense. How do the people in Canada feel about this resignation of Trudeau?
Well, I don't know about everybody across the country, but all my friends yesterday who were, DMing me on Facebook or other social media, everybody was pretty happy. So you guys had your January 6th a couple of years ago. That was a little bit rough, but for the rest of us in Canada, our January 6th yesterday was pretty great.
But it was. So what was the last decade like for Canadians under Trudeau?
We moved from Canada. My family and I moved from Canada just about 8 years ago. So we left about a year or so into his prime ministership. And we could even see then, and going into that election wherein he won, he was, openly running on things like, deficits, aware of what was going to happen to the country's economy down the line. And we're 10 years into it now, and we're just seeing the fruits of all of that. And so for Canada, economically, it's been a disaster in terms of like basic human freedoms, freedom of assembly. If you saw with the truckers during the COVID, fiasco in Canada, things in Canada got very difficult, and I would even argue dark. And especially now, I think we're starting to finally see a light on the horizon.
Now, Canada's been known to have progressive elements, but also rural conservative values as well. I mean, when Trudeau started out, he was kind of like a Barack Obama figure, right? A lot of hope, optimism, a young progressive. Talk about the transition in Canada from that time to where we are now, because he looked quite defeated in his resignation yesterday.
Yeah, he looked awful, and to a degree, rightly so, because he's really brought this upon himself. The only reason he's resigning is not because the country is not in favor of him. That was shown in our last election, where I would argue he didn't win the last election; he just lost the least. And so I think the writing's been on the wall for him for quite some time. And even in this past summer, I think it would have been right for him to have even stepped down then. And so, to see him where he's at now and as upset as he was, I'm sure many Canadians don't have a lot of sympathy for him. But you're right, just like a Barack Obama, although Barack Obama, for whatever we think about him politically, at least he had some sort of substance. Whereas when you look at Prime Minister Trudeau, he doesn't come even close to somebody like an Obama.
Well, I'm interested in that because Wall Street Journal also had another article yesterday about how, maybe the progressive moment in global politics is over. Was was Trudeau hamstringed by conservatives in his government, or were his failures tied to the fact that he got to fully implement a progressive worldview? Right? He just didn't have those restrictions, and so the failures we're dealing with now is because progressivism was fully implemented. Or was he hamstringed? He wasn't able to achieve what he wanted to because conservatives got in the way. Your thoughts?
No, I don't think that in terms of the influence of conservatives. As I said, because he lost the least, it meant that he had a very small minority government, which in Canada, we have multiple parties. It's not just a two-party system. And the Liberal Party, which is supposed to be more centrist and is actually more of a very strong left-wing party, they aligned with the other supposedly far-left party, which basically looks the same as the Liberals. They're called the New Democratic Party. And these two parties kind of formed a coalition within Parliament to allow Justin Trudeau to actually implement the policies that he wanted. And the irony of it is that the head of the New Democratic Party is a gentleman named Jagmeet Singh, who is very publicly critical of Trudeau. And Canadians are frustrated by Singh because he's the one propping Trudeau up and allowing him to maintain power. So there's a big degree of hypocrisy on both parties on the extreme left.
Talking to Ian Clary with Colorado Christian University. He teaches historical theology there, but he's Canadian. He's a friend of mine. I wanted to get a sense of how Canadians were responding. Can you remind people what the trucker protest was all about for those of us that saw the trucks but don't really understand what it was all about?
Yeah, it was a very controversial issue in Canada, right across the country, and became really divisive. In large part, I think, because of the way that Canadian, mainstream or legacy media was pushing the narrative about these truckers. They were sort of seen as kind of like these supposedly white nationalist, far right extremists. When in reality, these are just, men and women who, by and large, spent time by themselves in their trucks day in, day out, not worrying about, spreading COVID to anybody within the cab of their truck. And they weren't allowed to do their work. And so there was all these restrictions that were being put on them, just as there were across the country for everybody, that were, I would argue, draconian and unjust. And so they staged a protest right across the country, and it was actually quite amazing. It was a very typically Canadian protest with like lots of fun beer drinking, people just having a good time in the streets of our capital. And it was treated by the Trudeau government as if it was some sort of political uprising or revolt. And he stamped down on it with RCMP, the Mounties and that sort of thing. And it was just symbolic of the control that he wanted over the country. And if my in-laws in Canada would send money to the truckers, you could donate to them from your bank account. And there were lots of people doing that in Canada that were having their bank accounts seized by the Canadian government, which to me is an incredibly tyrannical override of any kind of genuine political authority. So I think that was very symbolic. And some are even arguing right now in Canadian media that could have actually, the trucker rally could have been the start of his undoing, which would be, a beautiful irony.
Talking to Dr. Ian Clary, Associate Professor of Historical Theology at Colorado Christian University, about the resignation of Justin Trudeau yesterday. Now, under his leadership, how were pastors treated? Talk about religious freedom, churches in Canada under the leadership of Justin Trudeau.
Yeah, this was a harder one to kind of suss out, especially for myself living down here in Denver. Kind of looking back up across the border and seeing what was happening, because a lot of American news media was really, latching on to a couple of major stories in Canada of some very vocal pastors who were just very publicly sort of, disobeying the various lockdown mandates. And so they became very polarizing figures in Canadian church life and just Canadian life more broadly. And a lot of the stories that would come out of Canada, whether it was into the States or over into, UK media or something like that, was that there was like a kind of mass, arrests of various pastors and whatnot. It was definitely not a good thing. What was happening were some people like James Coates and Tim Stevens were being very publicly, put into jail. But what I was finding is I was kind of hearing more on the ground stories from pastor friends was that they didn't feel the same pressures that maybe some of these others did, and some of the others were very public and vocal in wanting to draw attention to what was happening. And so these things were, arrests were happening. So it was very kind of like confusing to be able to know how to process it all. But I would say that Canada, by and large, would be very similar to the U.S. in terms, well, the U.S. is probably better in terms of religious freedom, but I would say that we would have a good degree of it. And I don't know if churches were necessarily being singled out. Maybe some.
How about like on LGBTQ issues? Do pastors up there have the freedom to teach what the Bible says on that stuff?
Well, there's the issue of the conversion therapy laws that are very problematic because of the way that they're so vaguely defined. Anybody that says anything about the power of the gospel to actually change a person's heart and then change their life, which could then end up, for somebody who has same-sex attraction, maybe they become a Christian, and that desire was to go away. Maybe without even a pushing of a Christian counselor or a pastor, that could be considered conversion therapy, and there are very strict laws against that. And so I think that would be something that I would worry about if I was pastoring up in Canada right now. And I know a lot of my friends would worry about that because it just gives the Canadian government power to interfere into something that they legally don't have the right to.
Talking with Dr. Ian Clary, Associate Professor of Historical Theology, Colorado Christian University. We're talking Canada. Hey, what are you hearing from your friends on the future? Are we going to have a conservative revolution up in Canada?
Well, it's amazing just what's happening. It seems maybe not right across the Western world, but when you think of, the Trump election that's just occurred here in the U.S., it looks very good that Pierre Poilievre is how you'd say his last name.
Thank you.
It looks very good. I mean, I would be shocked if he is not the next Canadian Prime Minister. And yes, he's a conservative, more of the kind of like libertarian style conservative, but nonetheless something that I think Canada really needs. And so it looks like the future is very bright. And my hope is that this will also spill over into the UK, and that we might see the Reform Party and Nigel Farage get into power, and then to have the US, Canada, and the United Kingdom with conservative leadership, I think would be not just great for those respective countries, but I think great for the Western world overall.
All right, Donald Trump's talked about Canada becoming the 51st state. What are your thoughts on that likelihood?
If you'd said that, if I'd heard him say that a few years ago, I might have taken umbrage with it. But I think a lot of us Canadians are kind of like, hey, 51 doesn't sound that bad. I think the president's probably just joking and trying to take a dig at Trudeau. But I mean, with the way things are looking in terms of the trade relationship that Canada and the U.S. are going to have, especially if Trump slaps tariffs on Canadian goods at like 25%. We're gonna, be wishing that we had some more of U.S. protections and those sorts of things. So the next 6 months are gonna be very telling, as there's gonna be a leadership race. Right now, our parliament is prorogued, which means that it's not in session, and it won't be now until March, which allows the Liberals to actually have a leadership race to replace him, and then there'll be an election. And when you think about for Canadians, economically, these tariffs are a very serious threat. And we need a prime minister in office now to be able to do the things to be able to mitigate that damage. And so, I don't know. I think as I said, the next 6 months are going to be very telling as to seeing how things will go with Canadian and U.S. relations.
Talking with Dr. Ian Clary, Associate Professor of Historical Theology, Colorado Christian University, about Canada. We do have a text message question here. Text message. I understand also that Canada passed a law prohibiting public proselytizing. Is that the case there?
I haven't actually heard that, and I have a number of friends back in Canada that are very strong sort of public evangelists, whether that's going out into neighborhoods and street corners, but also just friends that will stage debates on university campuses and those sorts of things. And I've never heard anybody say that there was any kind of problem with public proclaiming of the gospel. That could be the case, but I've just not heard about it.
I want to talk a little bit about how Canada breaks up a little bit. You have some areas that are very progressive. I think that's on the eastern side, and then the western side tends to be more conservative. Because if I've heard critiques that if we welcomed Canada as the 51st state, we'd just be getting another California. Can you talk about the general political persuasion of Canadians?
Yeah, that's a very good thought, is that if Canada were to become a 51st state, you would be inheriting certain political problems. And it's not really located on the coasts per se. It's just really our major cities that will be, tend to vote for some sort of a progressive leader, whether it's Trudeau or Jagmeet Singh. So if you were to go into Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, and even Calgary, which is kind of amazing, these larger city centers, they tend to vote that way, and then that shapes the whole country. So you could look at an electoral map of Canada after an election. The whole country could look blue for conservative, but if those major cities are red for liberal on the map, the whole country will go liberal. And so the big problems would be those cities that if we became, the 51st state, we'd have to deal with them. But the rest of the country, but this is what's interesting, actually. So I come from a car town. I grew up on the border with Detroit, Michigan. It's a city called Windsor, which is historically very left-wing, very socialist because of the working class and the car industry. And one of the things that's been happening in conversations in my hometown, just regular people, not anybody who's overly politically involved or religious or anything, and you're getting people who would vote typically for a far left socialist party actually going door to door on behalf of the conservatives. And so things in the political landscape really seem to be changing. Just like I think with President Trump, who, though a Republican and considered, the Republican stereotype is that all they care about is capitalism and big business and corporations. Well, it turns out that President Trump actually really cares about the working man. And same happens to be the case with Pierre Poilievre. And his real concern and the real stress that he's been putting in large part, as he's talking publicly about his policies, is to just put money back in the bank accounts of regular Canadians who are suffering. And that to me is very interesting to see that sort of sea change from people far left, working class, now supporting right-wing blue conservatives. It's amazing.
Now, Dr. Ian Cleary, Associate Professor of Historical Theology from CCU, joining Jeff and Bill live. A few minutes ago, you talked about the idea that it would be great to have Donald Trump here in the U.S., a conservative leader in Canada, and then a conservative leader in the U.K. A couple of sentences later, you talked about Trump's tariffs being a threat to Canada. Mm-hmm. Help me square that circle. How can it be a great thing to have Donald Trump in America in charge, yet his first economic plan that he points towards our neighbor to the north, you say is a threat?
Yeah, well, I would say that Canadians definitely feel that as a threat. And I don't even know that it's something that, I don't think it's baked into President Trump's policies towards Canada. I think that he's looking north and he's seeing some significant problems, just like he's seeing on the world stage. I mean, with NATO or, European countries and whatnot that, want to take from the Americans, but don't want to give back. And I think he's seeing that in Canada. We have a wide open border. It's supposed to be the most, kind of free, undefended border in the world. And yet tons of, immigration problems coming through Canada into the U.S., I think are a significant concern. And President Trump's right to see that. And so putting those sort of those tariffs to prevent or to fix these problems, it was actually kind of genius on his part, because he's forcing the Canadian government to do something. And I think if the Canadians under Poilievre actually do those things he requires, I don't think he's going to slap the tariffs, and I don't think the threat will be as dire as it could be. And I think that's particular to U.S. and Canadian relations economically. But on the world stage, it's almost like, I kind of picture it like, when we had Margaret Thatcher, Ronald Reagan, and then Brian Mulroney in Canada, alongside Pope John Paul II. I mean, that was a powerhouse of leadership at that period of time that basically brought down communism in Eastern Europe. And so I think, that kind of political coalition between Western countries, I think will also have very good benefits for countries, at least in the West, if not globally, because we're thinking about Ukraine and Russia and Israel and all these sorts of things. I think it could be very good, just like it was back then.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned that you started the answer with the fact that you don't think he's necessarily that serious on the tariffs, and he's worried about something else. But then you came back to it and said, yes, he's serious on the tariffs, and it's going to make a change. But if he's not serious on the tariffs, it's not going to make a change. And I'm less convinced that the U.S. cutting off things like the import of oil and gas from Canada based on tariffs because it would make it so expensive is going to change what Canada does on the border. I'm less convinced that this is the way, than the mechanism that's going to happen.
We'll see. I mean, Poilievre seems very strong on wanting to, President Trump can smell a weak person from 10 miles away, and he could see, from Washington looking up to Ottawa, that Justin Trudeau is a very weak person. And so you could see that he doesn't have that same respect that he might for somebody who's a stronger world leader. And I'm convinced, actually, that when Pierre Poilievre becomes the prime minister, I think he'll be somebody that the president would respect and would want to work with. And I think that would be the case as well for Poilievre. And he's already saying things.
Doesn't Trump also respect and work well with Xi and Putin? Not people that we would want to have our world leaders emulate.
Fair. Yeah. I'm not talking necessarily about the quality of the leader, just the fact that maybe that leader would be perceived or even would be a strong person. I think that's the kind of personality that President Trump would gravitate towards, that Trudeau does not manifest at all, whereas somebody like Poilievre would. And so I think he'd be much more willing to actually enter into proper negotiations instead of trying to maybe, strong arm somebody like he could have with a Trudeau.
Talking to Dr. Ian Clary. He's the Associate Professor of Historical Theology at CCU, Canadian, talking all things Canada and Trudeau. Thank you so much for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, this has been enjoyable. Thank you very much.
Very much so. Thank you. I appreciate it.
We'll continue
stay warm. Have a good day.
To follow all these changes and maybe have Dr. Clary back. And that was a good conversation.
Yeah, that was fun.
You two as well. All right. What do you think is going to happen now? Do you think that America would actually bring Canada on as the 51st state?
No.
I don't think it's going to happen.
There's no way, and here's the reason why. One, he did talk about it a little bit, but it is those city population centers. It would end up being 52 to 60 new electoral college votes, and it would be something that would be more liberal, because Canada as a whole is politically more liberal.
More progressive.
And the issue being this is what we're going to have to figure out is, what do you do with the Canadian national healthcare system, and what do you do with their gun laws? Those are the first two things those are the first two hurdles you have to overcome. You have to figure out how you're going to implement. Are you going to take away healthcare from Canada? Are you going to expand their gun laws? I'm not certain that that's going to go over well, especially the healthcare side of things for Canada, which means if you don't, you've got to expand government paid for healthcare here in America. And I can't see the American voters going for it. That will be the stopping point at the beginning. Then it'll be gun laws. If you can get over those two hurdles, maybe, but I don't think there's any way we can get over those two.
I don't see that happening. I see Greenland and Panama. Well, I think Panama is more of a negotiation tactic. But
there's no way. Panama, there's no way. There's no way, because Panama's not giving it up, and we can't, and we're not going to invade Panama. And if we did, it would be stupid, because we've spent the previous 20 years training with the Panamanian military about what happens if someone invades.
China.
They have our plans. If we were going to invade, we've told them exactly how it would happen. They have the playbook.
I am looking at X, though. Donald Trump Jr. and Charlie Kirk and others have just landed in Greenland.
So what? Who cares?
I'm just saying that out of all three, I think that's the more likely one to happen.
No. But, okay, how much are we going to pay for it?
Yeah, I don't know.
And here's the problem. Aren't we worried about the deficit?
Yeah.
So then where's the money coming from?
What if it's a deal to where, because of the resource allocation and management, it becomes a net positive for America?
But again, how are you going to sell that to deficit hawks? Where are you going to get this pile of free money? That's the issue. You're not buying it for $5 million. You're going to have to pay through the nose to get it. The other thing is, right now it's a purview of Denmark, and they're a NATO ally. That's another thing. It's not as if
you'd have to buy it from Denmark.
Yeah, I know. And so now we're talking about increasing the deficit by how much? How much more deficit
maybe
spending?
Move the money. I bet you could move the money from Ukraine over and buy Denmark with the amount of money we're spending over in Ukraine.
Oh, I disagree. I don't think they'd take that check.
love to hear from you all. Phone lines are open 303-696-1971 or text us on the Dan Capitalist Law text line 720-819-5115. We'll continue. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Text messages coming in on this one. Breadman saying we need to do a morning trip to the Calgary Stampede. I heard that's a good rodeo up there.
It'd be fun. You know,
We've been trying to get the rodeos. They just don't start early enough for us.
They don't.
Speaking of that, National Western Stock Show begins this week. The parade Thursday. You ever gone downtown to the parade? You've never?
Yeah, it's been years.
I've never
Though,
been to it because I always had to work or something like that. I just never
we had a ranch, friends and family that would come in, and so sometimes they'd get some of the cattle in there. They'd be involved with it, and so they were coming in from east side of Colorado. So we'd go down there and hang out with them. Yeah, they do you raise the sheep and the cows and stuff for the 4-H, and then you auction them off and stuff. That's what they were doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been down there because it was part of the thing. They came into town. They'd stay with us, and but it's been years. I mean, it's probably been since I was 13, 14 years old. It's been a long, long, long time, but it's fun.
Suzanne texting in, I listen to you right-wing folks in various forums talk about Greenwood. However, no one asked the question, does Greenland want to be a part of the U.S.? Well, I think that's part of the equation.
No,
I don't think we would want to buy land of people that don't want to be a part of it.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't see why Denmark would sell it. It makes no sense, especially if it's the idea
they've tried in the past.
Okay. But there are lots of things that have been tried in the past.
Right.
And if the idea is the access to natural resources, why would Denmark give that up? Just license it and you can keep the cash.
So Greenland is talking about getting independence from Denmark.
Yeah.
So
which wouldn't be us. That wouldn't be us.
Could be coming over. There's a possibility there. But we were offered to buy Greenland in the past. We chose instead to buy the U.S. Virgin Islands. About 40% of America's land has come through these types of purchase deals. So it's not totally wild. Think about Alaska. Think about the Louisiana Purchase.
Yeah. The thing for
Thomas Jefferson almost bought Cuba.
Yeah. The thing for me is the idea that the party that said, oh my God, the budget's out of control. Oh my God, the deficit is now like, let's go buy a large piece of land.
Yeah,
that just
if
makes
it's
no
just straight,
sense.
If it's a financial loser, that makes sense. But if and I agree with you, Bill, if it's just a financial loser, if we're just spending money to get Greenland, that doesn't make sense. But if the deal can be made or the argument can be made to conservatives that financially this is going to be better through resource development and access to the Arctic Circle, then I'm at least willing to consider it. But the idea of buying land somehow being like totally outrageous, about 40% of America's land came through these types of purchases. So,
yeah, but decades and 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 decades
I think
ago.
it was in the 30s that the U.S. Virgin Islands were purchased.
Okay. Not recent. I mean, you understand what we were doing in the 30s at that time, as far as where society was then and what we're doing now. That's not necessarily recent. You don't point back to the 30s and go, this was a great idea back in the 30s. Let's do this kind of thing again. Not a lot of things like that going on right now. And again, the deficit.
Give us
fix
a call.
that one for me.
Would you take Greenland? Do you think it's a good idea? 303-696-1971 or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line 720-819-5115. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Denver Gazette has an article out. The Denver mayor releases his report card for 2024. I don't see a grade in this article, Bill.
Well, again, he's progressive. You don't grade kids because it hurts their feelings. You don't want to hurt his fifis. Yeah, of course Mike Johnson gave himself a participation medal. Of course he is. What did we expect? Of course. Yes, funny. Of course, yes. That's exactly it. He has a Montessori approach to this. Yeah.
Denver Mayor Mike Johnson touted that he described what he has described as successes in reducing homelessness and crime, and cited voters' approval of a $570 million investment in the expansion of the Downtown Development Authority as fueling new interest in the heart of the city. But he has admitted that some areas need improvement. Most notable on the list was Johnston's pledge to move 2,000 homeless people off the street and into shelters by the end of 2024. At the end of 2024, 2,200 people have been brought indoors, but the effort has been expensive. Notably, Denver council members did not know how much the city spent on its homelessness response until they received a briefing from the city's Department of Housing Stability last June. As it turned out, the city was on track to spend $155 million between July 2023 and December 2024, $65 million more than Johnston had previously said it would cost. So if you go to x.com/Jeff Hunt, I have a poll. What grade would you give the leadership of Denver Mayor Mike Johnston?
And remember that during the analysis of the homeless program, they couldn't find out where about 38% of the money went. They did such poor accounting with it, they couldn't point to where it went. And they double paid some vendors. That's how bad their accounting system was. So it's a surprise they spent 65 mil more? No.
Right
they were
now,
going at this being stupid.
The grade F at 93%, C at 7%.
That's funny.
On the poll. You could go to x.com/Jeff Hunt if you want to vote in that poll. Coming up, John Carson. He won over the weekend in the vacancy committee. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 9 a.m. Very snowy Mile High City today. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You woke up in the greatest country in history. We're off and running. Got a whole hour planned for you. Want to get into this here in just a second. John Carson won the election on Saturday to fill the Senate District 30 vacancy. This was down in Douglas County. He's going to join us. Tell us how it went. Now, what's interesting here, because I wasn't part of it, I don't live in Douglas County anymore. Van Winkle, who was set to vacate the seat and now become county commissioner, nominated Kim Ransom. But former House Speaker and current CU Regent Frank McNulty introduced Carson, stating that he would defend conservative values. He cited Carson's work to eliminate the Douglas County Teachers Union when he was on the school board, advanced taxpayer-funded vouchers for private schools, all that stuff, and it seemed to have worked. So we'll get a sense of what Saturday was like directly from the newly minted state senator. First, I want to talk to you first about my friends at Advanced Hair Restoration. How about a simple New Year's resolution, one that even I could achieve? Reverse the clock on hair loss with Advanced Hair's simple one-day FUE treatment. You'll feel more confident and more youthful when you witness your own natural hair growing into those places that have been balding or thinning for years. From Advanced Hair's breakthrough technology to their highly experienced team, there is no one I trust more than Advanced Hair Restoration. Their simple FUE treatment begins to regrow your own natural hair the very next day, and your new hair is backed by the Advanced Hair Guarantee. Simply put, Advanced Hair's exceptional standard of care makes your comfort and your results their top priority. So celebrate the new year with a fuller head of hair and get your free consultation, $250 off, and 250 free hair grafts. Call 720-459-HAIR. That's 720-459-HAIR. Discover what meeting your resolution could look like with the before and after pictures at advancedhair.com. I've had multiple family members. In fact, most of the men in my life and my family have had hair treatment done and totally improved their lives. I mean, they look great. They felt younger. They brought more energy out and improved all the relationships. So check out Advanced Hair Restoration. Could really help you out there. Let's go to news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. It's 20 and plenty of snow out there. Take it slow on the roads. Be patient. Expecting a high of 27 today. Some school districts and businesses delayed this morning. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story. Yes.
Can we talk about how kids these days don't have to wake up and stare at the bottom of a scrolling news bar on the news, trying to see if their school goes by quickly, and if you miss it, then you have to wait through the whole thing again.
That's right. At least 8 to 10 minutes. Then a commercial hits. Yeah, man.
Do I get the day off? Do I get the day off? I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, no, now it's all text messages. We woke up this morning to text messages. Delayed start, delayed start. They don't know.
Yeah. And we always used to, I'm so old, we'd always see our school would be misspelled on channel 9 or channel 7 or channel 2 or 4 or whatever. And I mean, you're right. We'd sit around 10, 15 minutes just to, what? That was awesome.
And then you'd have all these other schools, but yours wouldn't go through, and you're like,
yes,
was it a typo? I don't know.
That's exactly right. My kids they just left about 45 minutes ago, and they were doing the exact same thing.
And this is their first day back for for our kids.
Yeah, same
They
here.
had 2 weeks off and then a delayed morning.
Oh man, they would have felt they hit the lottery.
Yeah.
Yep. That's the great thing about living in Colorado. Days like that when you're a kid. The CDC, they are confirming America's first human bird flu death. CDC officials say the person who died was over 65, had underlying medical conditions, and was hospitalized in Louisiana with a severe case of bird flu, according to the CDC. There have been 66 confirmed human cases of bird flu in the U.S. as of 2024, but this was the first fatality. And remember, Bill Gates and his mad scientist, Peter Hotez, who knows way too much about pandemics coming down the pike, almost like these things are scheduled.
We have some big picture stuff coming down the pike starting on January 21st. Mr. Bloomberg mentioned H5N1. That I'm really worried about. It's all over wild birds on the western part of the United States and going up in the north. It's getting into the poultry. We're seeing sporadic human cases, no human-to-human transmission yet, but that could happen. It's in the cattle. It's in the milk.
Oh, you
and
can't
that's just
wait
the
for
beginning.
that.
We have another major coronavirus likely
brewing. A couple of weeks away from Inauguration Day. Get ready for more of this, and I'm sure you'll hear from that dude today or tomorrow, Hotez again. But the good news, Mark Zuckerberg admitting his wrongdoings and Meta ending its fact-checking in favor of community-based systems or a system similar to community notes on X. It'll affect Facebook, Instagram, and Threads.
Hey, after Trump first got elected in 2016,
I'll let you talk.
No, please.
Zuckerberg's done. Here.
The legacy media wrote nonstop about how misinformation was a threat to democracy. We tried in good faith to address those concerns without becoming the arbiters of truth. But the fact checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the US. So over the next couple of months, we're going to phase in a more comprehensive community notes system. Second, we're going to simplify our content policies and get rid of a bunch of restrictions on topics like immigration and gender that are just out of touch with mainstream discourse.
Yeah, I feel like I'm on Mars now. What were you going to say?
All right, so Billy and I were having a debate off air. That's what happens on this show. Okay, so Mark Zuckerberg. Was he always a conservative that was mischaracterized with the Zuck bucks during 2020 because he wasn't really trying to influence the election for Biden? Or is he a progressive that's reading the writing on the wall that everyone likes X better than Facebook, and he's got to shake it up a little bit, bring the UFC guy Dana White, and try to look more like Elon Musk because just no one visits Facebook anymore, and he's actually trying to change. Blake, where do you fall along those lines?
I don't know. That is a great question. Or was he just a young guy who has actually grown up and matured and understood the ways of the world more? I don't know. I don't know enough about him. I would say I don't think it's his capitalistic instincts. I doubt. I think it could be the popularity of X. What do you think?
I mean, Bill, you think that he was mischaracterized with the Zuck bucks?
Oh, absolutely, because he didn't direct any of the cash. He was a punching bag that just made for a convenient deep state moniker, because he donated the money to the organization and he didn't direct the money to go anywhere. He had no purview, nor did anybody at any point in time be able to point to Mark Zuckerberg saying, you need to do this with the money. No one showed that anywhere, and there were people that were involved in the organization at the time that were conservatives. And they said Mark Zuckerberg didn't do that. He became a convenient punching bag. You don't get to that level by being this bleeding heart liberal. And I disagree with the premise that Twitter is all of a sudden going gangbusters, because Facebook is still the #1 social media platform on the planet, and Twitter ranks somewhere around 16. And so the number of people is
I don't know any
fractional.
conservative content creators who do a dang thing on Facebook anymore.
Well, I don't know a lot of people that are quote unquote content creators that do a lot on Facebook, because that's not necessarily the vehicle. That's YouTube, Instagram, Twitch. Those are those places. Facebook is an older demographic that stays connected based on posting things and family pictures and stuff like that. But it is the overwhelming. I mean, it's got almost, I want to say, 3-4 times minimum the user base that Twitter does. It's not even close. It's
is
the difference.
More women also on Facebook?
I haven't seen that as far as demographic breakup, but it wouldn't surprise me. But Twitter has been shedding users on a daily basis for the past 3 months, and this is prior to the election. They were still trending down. I think in the previous month they lost somewhere around 10% of their daily user base. That's why, in my opinion,
I don't see that at all.
But, but I'm looking. I understand that you're not seeing it, but you may not see it in your feed. But I'm telling you what the numbers say. I'm telling you what the overall user interaction numbers say, and that's what the overall user number interactions say. It's why Elon Musk recently came out and talked about how you need more positive and uplifting content on Twitter. He said that twice. In the previous week, he's come out and posted that.
I missed that.
And he said,
I wonder how much of Facebook is just still living off of the fumes of being like the big one in the early 2000s. Because my personal perspective, I'm having hundreds of thousands of impressions and engagement taking place on X, nothing on Twitter. I don't go there at all anymore.
You mean Facebook?
I mean,
Facebook.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah.
So,
but the platforms are different, though. The platforms in which you use Twitter for is different than what you use Facebook for. They're totally different social media vehicles. And looking at the end of 2024, pulling up the numbers, Twitter had an average of 600 million monthly active users. Facebook, over 3 billion.
Yeah.
That's not even close. That's not even close as far as size of a social media platform. Twitter is a minor social media platform compared to all of the others at this point. They're not even in the top 10. They're not in the top 15.
I think it's I think all the smart people go to X. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah. I mean, it's where, look, I don't think people are watching news anymore. I don't think they're reading news anymore. I think they're getting it through places like X. And I can say, as somebody who engages on all of these platforms, the sheer number of actual engagement with people on X versus YouTube versus Facebook or even Instagram is just night and day difference for me.
Yeah, same here.
All my engagements taking place on X. And so, I think part of these numbers are just kind of living off the fumes of being really popular in the early 2000s.
Yeah, but that wouldn't necessarily impact the monthly active users, because if they're living off of fumes, they wouldn't have 3 billion monthly active users. So I understand what you mean by the fumes and it being kind of performative, but I do believe also it's an older demographic. And I think that maybe the demographic you have on Twitter is going to be different than the demographic that you have on Facebook. And also the information shared and the conversations that go on Twitter are different than the ones that go on Facebook, in my opinion.
Definitely. And the TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah.
So see, I mean, to me, it's like how comfortable are you using these things? I hate using Instagram and TikTok.
Yeah, and Instagram and TikTok sit at number 4 and number 5.
Do they?
Both have more than 1.5 billion monthly active users, which again, 600 million for Twitter. Again, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram dwarf the reach that Twitter has.
So
on a daily basis.
why do you think that Mark Zuckerberg's all of a sudden shedding the fact checkers, wants to use community notes like X, and is bringing Dana White on?
Two things. One is money. It's expensive to pay fact checkers, and he has to justify them, and it's a group of people that he has to run. If you depend on the community for doing it, then all you have to do is you have to have either an algorithm, or you have much fewer people going in to police those community notes. And here's the idea. What this is Facebook turning around like the grocery stores did a year ago and saying, hey, look at all these self-checkout lanes. Isn't this going to be better when you can do this all yourself? That's what this is. He's creating self-checkout lanes because they are more efficient economically for him, and he doesn't spend the money. It's also a good PR move, because now the whole stuff that he talks about, the idea of, facts and truth is so hard. No, truth is not hard. Truth is immutable. Problem is we can't agree on what are actual facts or truth anymore. That's the issue, is that we filter our truth through our politics. We don't let truth filter our politics. We do it backwards. And that's what he's talking about, is that we have decided that our politics determine what's true in our world. And he's not going to fight that anymore. And again, he's just outsourcing it to the community. He's basically setting up giant self-checkout lanes for Facebook, saying, if you're mad about this, you're in charge of it. Good luck. I hope you don't scan those oranges and say they're actually great.
Community notes work well, but
yeah. How old is he now? Zuckerberg?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
What's your guess?
He's about my age.
He's
mid-40s.
Yeah, he's mid-40s.
Is that right?
I guess. Yeah.
I didn't know that. Okay, I thought he was a lot younger. Okay.
He's mid-40s. Yeah, but just an opinion. That's what I think he's doing. He's setting up self-checkout lanes. Yep. In his social media site. It's more efficient for him. Makes sense.
But even he admits that fact checkers are just politically motivated.
Yeah.
But is he necessarily admitting that and saying, "Oh, it's just"?
That's what he said in the audio.
No, I know. I understand what he's saying in the audio, but what I'm saying is, the idea that he's saying the fact checkers are politically motivated, wouldn't that be on him? Aren't they his fact checkers? Isn't that a failure of him? Exactly. That would be a failure on his system. That would be a failure of Facebook. That would be a failure of their process and the individuals they're hiring. If they are getting politically motivated fact checkers, that's on Facebook, because they hired and continue to employ politically motivated fact checkers. That's not a bash against the whole fact checking industry. That's a bash on him going, hey, look, we hired a bunch of people that are politically motivated. We shouldn't have done that. He's turning around and talking about the warts on his own social media program. Yeah, that's what it is. That's what he's doing there. He's sitting there and saying, yeah, we went at this and we went at this politically, and that's what we felt it. So that's what he's doing. And the Dana White, he's papering over the fact that the thing about the Zuck bucks, because Dana White is tight with Trump. So he's bringing one of Trump's inner dudes onto the board. So he's going to smooth that over. This is another political move.
Carson.
Yeah, we got it. Sorry.
All right.
This is fun,
I love it. You guys have a good day. Celtics at the Nuggets tonight. Avs over the Panthers last night, 3-1. 18 in Arvada, 19 in Englewood, 20 in Denver. Stay careful and slow on the roads. It's Tuesday. Jeff and Billy continue. Blake Olson, News Talk, 710 KNUS.
We're under a winter weather advisory through noon. It'll be mostly cloudy with periods of light snow, mainly here in the morning hours. Watch for slick roads. Any additional accumulations will be light. Highs only 20s. Be ready for a cold night tonight in the upper single digits. Watch for fog. Wednesday, sunny, 30s, teens Wednesday night, mostly cloudy. We may see another chance of light snow again with another front during the day Thursday, and continued cold. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Well, last week we had all three on: Priscilla Ron, Kim Ransom, and John Carson, with regards to the upcoming Senate District 30 vacancy meeting that took place on Saturday. And the winner is John Carson, to give us some insight on what happened during the meeting and how he came out victorious. Is the newly appointed state senator from Senate District 30, which is in Douglas County. John Carson, Senator, thank you so much for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yes, congratulations.
Yeah, well, thank you, Jeff and Bill. I always enjoy being on your show. Well, I think, I want to thank my two opponents. We all stepped up, and Kim and Priscilla and myself. And I think the most important thing is we gave the voters a choice. And often these vacancy committee functions are just a coronation, of who's next in line. And I felt it was important to give people a real choice. And I think people enjoy that. I'll just say real quick why I think I did well. And I think the central message I had was that we as a party are really in crisis, and we need to stop focusing inward all the time and focus outward, and take our message out, focus on ideas, not personalities. If you think about it, I believe the voters of this state largely agree with us on the big issues of low taxes, low income, and property taxes, protecting Tabor in our state, fighting illegal immigration, keeping crime low, developing responsibly our resources and energy. But we're not communicating any of that. We're just in this circular firing squad, basically feuding all the time. Who's the more pure Republican? And the irony again is, I think us Republicans these days are pretty much in agreement on most things. I got involved back in the 80s when there was a real difference in the party in terms of different. You even had liberal Republicans in those days in the Senate, and today we're pretty united, but we're not communicating well. And
well, let's talk about what happened on Saturday. Give people an update. So Van Winkle, from my understanding, I'm reading a Colorado Politics article here. Van Winkle nominated Ransom. Danielle Jurinsky nominated Priscilla Ron. So all great people. And then your introducer and nominator was Frank McNulty, right?
Yes. He was former Speaker of the House and a current CU regent.
That's great. And what were the differences that emerged between you three? And why do you think you took it? And you had to take it on the second ballot, right? The first one had some counting irregularities.
Yeah, there was. It wasn't anything major. I think what it was they just didn't have the right count of credentials. It ended up being 136 people that were credentialed in, and the outcome was essentially the same on the first and the second ballot. From what I understand, it was just slightly off on the credentialing, but I was able to win, without having to have the multiple ballot. You got to in order to win a vacancy committee under state law, you have to have a majority. You can't win a plurality. So, like one of us couldn't have won with 40% of the vote. You had to have 50 plus one. So I was able to get that out of the chute.
So this was not like what happened in the Congressional District 4 vacancy committee, where Greg Lopez worked his way up over the series of what was like a dozen votes or something like that. This was one single vote. You received 71 votes. Kim Ransom, 48. Priscilla Ron, 17. As you listened to Frank McNulty talk about you, Danielle Jurinsky talk about Priscilla Ron, Kevin Van Winkle talk about Kim Ransom, what were the differences that were pointed out, and why do you think you won with 71 versus the others?
Well, I think people were looking for a new direction, and I'll just give you one example. What I showed them in my speech, I had a chart which showed the voter registration of Republicans in this state just in the last 10 years, from 2014 to 2024. And it's astounding when you look at the numbers. It's gone from 32% of the registered voters in Colorado to 23.3% in one decade. And I just said, this is a crisis. If this continues, we'll be below 20% in another election or two. If you had a product you were marketing, selling to the public, and your market share dropped in a decade from 32% to 23%, I think you'd want to make some major changes. And I really think that's the message that resonated with people, not not doing it the old way, but really getting together and start talking to each other and put our priorities, the state first, and the principles of the party first, not our personalities.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Douglas County. It's been shifting. I mean, we have a Democrat out of Highlands Ranch that represents Highlands Ranch down at the Colorado State Capitol. I mean, that would be shocking to anybody who's been around Colorado for a while, because Douglas County used to be this great bank of red votes for Republicans. It's now shifting. Why do you think that shift's happening in Douglas County? And how do you plan to lead down at the state capitol in light of the fact that, you know, your district isn't maybe as conservative as it was 10 years ago?
Yes. What I talked about on the state numbers are happening in Douglas County. In the last 4 years, we added 31,000 new registered voters in Douglas County, and the Republicans lost 6,000. We went from 98 down to 92. So this isn't just a statewide problem. And I think the northern part of Douglas County, what you would call the urbanized area, is definitely attracting more unaffiliated voters, younger voters, and we're not, as I said, we're just not communicating our message. I think people look at our party as just this club that doesn't want to bring in new people, and we've really got to change that. We've got to function as an articulate party of ideas and start going back to people that were Republicans or unaffiliated and get them back into the party, and work on our data. We got to statewide, we got to get our data better and figure out who we need to be talking to and getting voting Republican again.
Talking with John Carson, the newly minted state senator from Senate District 30. That's down in Douglas County. All right. So you get to introduce, I think it's 3 bills. I don't remember. I've never been a lawmaker, but 5 bills. 5. All right. So plans on what those 5 are going to be yet?
I have 2 that I talked about. Number one is I'd like us to create a state level efficiency commission pattern on what President Trump and Elon Musk are putting together on the federal level. And we're going to need that. I think the Democrats would be interested in working with us on that, because there are going to be some major cuts in the budget this year, because we're in deficit quite a bit, up to maybe $1 billion. So I'd like to bring business people into that kind of a commission, private sector. A second thing is the state income tax. You know, Jared Polis has repeatedly said he was interested in even getting rid of the state income tax, phasing it out. I think Republicans should be a lot more engaged on that issue. I'm going to propose some legislation initially to certainly keep ratcheting that down. We are going to come down to 4.25 this year from 4.4. And you go back a ways, it was 5%. But nationally, 8 or 9 states this year, at the beginning of the year, they significantly reduced their state income taxes, and we got to stay competitive and get on top of that issue. So I'm a big tax cutter on the income tax side. I think we can use Tabor to fuel that reduction. That's one of the ways you can give the tax refunds back to people, is by reducing the income tax rate.
John Carson, the newly minted Colorado State Senate District 30 member. Congratulations again, sir. Now, if we would reduce or cut back on that income tax, are you looking at just meaning you're just going to cut back all the total amount of dollars that are needed? Or are you looking to maintain that revenue by finding it with another source? What would be your plan?
Well, I think it would be a combination of both. I mean, I'm not going to say that we're all of that revenue we could reduce, but I think certainly in states, there are 9 states currently nationally that do not have a state income tax. Obviously, some of their other taxes are higher, but what's been happening at the state legislature lately is they've been using those surplus tax dollars for tax credits of all kinds of different categories that are favored, and I prefer to do it through across the board income tax reductions. I think that is better for the economy, for the state, and that would be my approach. Now, I got to get a good handle on how much this budget deficit really is going to be. Obviously, I'm not going to say we can abolish the state income tax in a year or two, but I think we could certainly start making some further reductions in it. And the governor says he supports it, so let's work with him.
Now, John Carson, a moment ago, you talked about the idea of bringing Republicans together inside of the state of Colorado. Do you think that is feasible in the near future? And what I mean by that is over the previous 4 to really 8 years, we have watched, in my opinion, the Colorado GOP go through a self-purge. They continually keep labeling individuals that do have solid conservative credentials as rhinos and saying they aren't conservative enough to be part of the party. It seems like it has been intentional by the Colorado GOP to get the exact results that you outlined, a shrinking of their share of the available voters in Colorado. How can we possibly change that direction?
Well, everything you said there, I agree with basically, and that's what's got to change. I mean, it has to be leadership that says our job as a party is not to enforce some type of litmus test on people. I don't know who decides what that is anyway. I mean, who decides what a true conservative Republican is? And we need to be a party that says let's put our ideas on the table, let's discuss them. But at the end of the day, our job as a party is to get Republicans elected in the state. We're not competitive. And the state needs, even Democrats will tell you, you've had them on your show before, they'll say it's not healthy for Colorado to have this kind of disparity between the two parties. Realistically, can we get the majority back real soon? Probably not. We will work at it, but we've got to get more seats and be competitive. And in the state Senate, I think we could become very competitive there, and it'd be much better for Colorado to have two functioning parties that way.
Talking to John Carson, newly appointed to the vacancy of Colorado State Senate seat 30. A few more questions. Have you heard of the well, before I get to your committee meetings, let's talk chairman of the Colorado Republican Party. We had Britta Horn on earlier. She announced yesterday she's going to run for the chair. Have you made up your mind on who you would support if Dave Williams is going to run again?
No, I said last week, my message is at this point unity, but I'm going to look at whoever the candidates are. We'll find out who the candidates are. And the test I'm going to put is basically what's the game plan to get this party back into a competitive position in Colorado. And all of these issues that we've been talking about here and that Britta raised earlier on the show are on the table. I mean, we've got to, I want to see a plan. I want to see a plan, and I want to see this personality and these purges and all of this stuff stop. I'm not going to vote for leadership that isn't committed to looking to the future of winning elections.
Right. John Carson.
Raising money, what you talked about, raising money, getting that data out there, getting the volunteers behind the candidates.
John, have you heard of the committee assignments you're going to have?
Yes. I talked to Senator Lundeen, who is the minority leader in the Senate, and he has assigned me to the Judiciary Committee, being a lawyer, and then the Health and Human Services Committee. So I will. There's a couple of other minor oversight, Colorado Bar Association. We get a seat on that sort of thing. But the main two committees are Health and Human Services and Judiciary.
For your constituents to follow you, hear from you, what's the best way to do that moving forward?
Well, I'm going to get a newsletter going, and I got, I've just been. This all happened so quickly. I'll be getting a website and all of that up and running, but I will definitely be going to meetings, communicating for folks, and they know how to reach me, and I will make it more clear how to reach me. But I'll be very accessible to folks, hear what they have to say.
Well, congratulations. We appreciate the fact that you joined us prior to becoming state senator. I hope we can be a resource for you to get news and information out. But thank you for taking time to explain what happened on Saturday, and a hearty congratulations to you, state senator.
All right. You bet. Thank you. Thank you, guys. And enjoy the nice weather.
Oh, yes. We're going to be wearing shirts later, my friend. Thank you, sir.
Gosh. Great congratulations to him. He had, and he's a good example of how when you want to do public service, sometimes it works out. right?
Yeah.
He was on the Douglas County School Board. I think he was the president of the school board there. He had run for county commissioner. It didn't work out running for county commissioner, and then he goes to the vacancies committee. So you can have ups and downs in politics.
Yeah.
And now he gets to go down the state capitol as a state senator.
Yeah, and I find it interesting, and it makes me feel better about the direction of the Colorado GOP because, again, I'm not a member, nor would they have me as one, and that's probably a smart idea. But it makes me feel better about the idea that he is talking about unity and not purity. The idea of trying to expand the tent and to listen to some of those disaffected voters, because I still feel that while I am unaffiliated and we are a giant amorphous blob that doesn't all believe one thing and we've all left political parties for a variety of reasons, there are a ton of disaffected Republicans that feel shut out of the Colorado State GOP, that if you start making even minor inroads with them, I believe the state GOP can see their fortunes change dramatically in a very short amount of time. But you have to convince those people that were told to get off the island to get back on the island. That's going to be the big hiccup right now. And John's at least rowing in the right direction. I appreciate it.
And the questions I raise in that is, are they mutually exclusive? As a coalitions guy, are unity or purity exclusive to each other?
Oh, that's good. That's really good.
Right? Like, and I brought this up with Britta Horn.
Yeah.
Because and I appreciate like Valdemar Archuleta running. I thought he was a great candidate, all that stuff. But the Republican Party platform, and I think it's really, really important, is committed to traditional marriage. So can we hold that as a platform and welcome people in that may not? Like log cabin Republicans. And we had the debate one time with Gays Against Groomers on the show about that. How do you maintain unity, purity, all that stuff? That's the conflict within the Colorado Republican Party. Phone lines are open. If you'd like to join us, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. Want to talk to you real quick about my friends over at QC Kinetics. Look, are you going to start the new year dealing with the same old joint pain, losing sleep, not able to take walks, or do what you love because your knees or hips? You got to check out QC Kinetics. All right, so here's how it works. Joel in our office uses them. All right, so they draw out a little bit of blood, and then they put it into this special magic machine that spins out the plasma. Then they get the plasma, which has these healing properties, and it's your own body, right? And they inject it back into your joints. Okay, so the result of all this, one, you don't need to use surgery, steroids, pain pills, none of that stuff anymore, right? It's all gone. Then, because of this, Joel here in our station is playing more golf than he's ever been before. He's telling me that he hikes, doesn't have to deal with the pain after the hike. It really has, it's like a fountain of youth that has been brought back for him. And he loves it. Okay, so find out if all natural regenerative medicine is right for you. All you have to do is give them a call. The consultation's totally free. You can use your HSA and FSA dollars. Live your best life in 2025. Get started now. Call 303-900-8986. That's 303-900-8986 with locations in Aurora, Superior, Highlands Ranch, and Colorado Springs. We'll continue with your phone calls and text. Plus, McDonald's now dumping DEI. We'll get into that. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Is DEI in corporate America now dead? McDonald's joining a whole list of corporations that are rolling back their DEI policies, including Walmart, Ford, Harley-Davidson, John Deere, Caterpillar, Tractor Supply, Lowe's, Molson Coors, Brown-Forman, and others. They're doing a few things. One is they're dropping their diversity targets, which I think is unconstitutional. But they're also kind of shedding these human rights campaign like scorecards. Like they're just not caring anymore. They're like, okay, we're done trying to play by these little nonprofit scores. We're just going to run our company. Doesn't mean that they're rejecting any effort to improve diversity. They're just not meeting arbitrary kind of diversity scores in their hiring, which I think is illegal. Bill, what do you think? Do you think it's a good idea to drop some of these DEI initiatives?
Well, the thing is that I find it okay. The problem I've had with the pushback against DEI is it seems to start from the premise that anybody that is elevated or anybody that is chosen through a DEI initiative wouldn't have gotten the job in the first place. It seems to this idea of either it's totally achievement based or it's totally DEI based. And I disagree with both premises, because anybody that's been in the working world for more than a cup of coffee has seen people get promoted that are definitely not achievement based. So the idea that business functions only on achievement based is not correct. I feel the companies that are pulling back from the DEI initiatives are those that weren't invested in it really in the first place. Those are companies that came out and did it more as public relations, that we need to do this because everybody else was. It was a me too. We often talk about the NFL being a me too league. Many times in business, it's a me too thing as well. You guys have this thing and you're getting publicity for it. Well, we have that thing too. We do it as well. We're just like them. We don't want them to be looked at that being a differentiator. The thing for me is that inequality is the thing that we really do need to address. And that still exists inside of corporations, inside of society. And eliminating DEI doesn't get us there, doesn't get us to eliminating that inequality. The part with the DEI that I had a real issue was really the E, how they were implementing the equity. Diversity and inclusion seem incredibly strong. And in fact, I could argue, and it would be a difficult argument, but I think I could, that both Vivek and Elon are huge proponents of DEI. They're the guys that wanted the H-1B visas. That's DEI. That is diversity and inclusion of finding people that are outside this company or outside this country to come in and work in those technical fields for your company. That is, in some ways, DEI. Yet Elon said that's the only way some of these tech companies can function. So that's where I think we as a society have had a miscommunication on how we've defined what DEI programs are. And because of that, it has allowed a whole lot of BS out there for people to take on DEI initiatives, to become DEI professionals, to get DEI jobs, because we were really awful at, one, outlining what it is, two, awful at the implementation, and three, we also seem to, in my opinion, view it as the next form of affirmative action.
Yeah.
And that's where I think it got the bad misnomer, because I didn't see anything inside of diversity, equity, inclusion that said you need to hire the unqualified before the qualified. I do appreciate them.
I think if it's exactly like affirmative action.
Where?
We're just up against a break.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Wow, what a show. Billy and I could have kept going for another 2 hours probably on these issues and DEI and McDonald's, all that. Thank you to all of our listeners. Seriously. I mean, we had folks calling in from Ohio. Steve House called us. We had Heidi Ganal call us.
Yeah.
We didn't even set those up.
No, they just called.
Amazing. And all the text messages. This show is becoming a force, and it's because of our listeners. We love you all so much. If you missed any of it, go to 710knus.com to download the podcast. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk station, News Talk 710 KNUS. And as the great Peter Boyle says, stay close to a warm radio. We'll see you tomorrow.